2025 Board of Ed meeting. Present tonight, we have Mr. Krasnoff, Mr. Lee, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Flynn, myself, Mr. Peterson, Superintendent Pestani, Max and Kennelly, Mr. Asa, and Mrs. Guernsey. And if you'll all join me in saying the pledge.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. We'll go on to item 3, student reports. Let's start with Ludlow.
To start off, our most recent event was we had our junior prom last Friday, May 2nd. It was really fun. I know that says not a lot to the report, but I thought that the venue was great. It was really just great for our building community. It was just like a really exciting and fun event for our juniors. And also coming up, we have our senior prom on May 30th.
Yeah, we also wanted to bring attention to the mock crash for juniors and for seniors. These are 2 events at Ludlow that we put together to raise awareness about drunk driving. And for us juniors, I think mock crash was especially powerful. The student actors as well as like the first responders who took part in that. They made it very realistic. I think they did a really good job.
I agree. We also had our awards concert, which was a collaboration between our orchestra, band, and choir, and it featured all 3 strands of art. And it gave a bunch of awards to dozens of our talented musicians on the Western Connecticut region, state, and national level.
Also another ongoing thing at Ludlow is AP exams. From May 5th to May 16th, Ludlow students have been taking exams in every 1 to 3 courses. We're finally getting finished with them.
And coming up this Thursday, our AP art students will be showcasing their work in the art rooms for all the students at our school can come and just like peruse all the different artwork. It's photography, like drawing, painting, sculpture, and ceramics, and that's all going to be on display for our students to kind of recognize some of our talented artists.
We also wanted to draw some attention to our family and consumer science department. They'll be doing their family and consumer science night upcoming actually tomorrow on Wednesday. And it will feature a fashion show as well, and there will also be food prepared by the culinary arts department.
Also coming up next week, the next generation science standards assessment will be administered to juniors just as a way to measure like the science benchmarks that are being met by students at our school.
And lastly, the National Honor Society induction ceremony will be held on Wednesday, May 21st. And it will also be in conjunction with the award ceremony recognizing juniors for excellence in music, the arts, academics, political advocacy, and service in the community.
Great, thank you. Walter Fitzgerald.
Spring has sprung at WFC. That means it's gardening time. We've begun planting our flowers and edible plants that we germinated and tended to all winter. Students are on a daily watering and maintenance schedule. Our 2 gardens have been loving all the rain.
Tuesday, April 22nd, we hosted a tea celebration at WFC. This is a way to thank community members and donors for all their help throughout the year. Attendees enjoyed sweet and savory finger foods, had a chance to pursue our campus, mingle with our students, and enjoyed a beautiful day.
Tomorrow, students will have the opportunity to work with a professional engineer to secure our beehives for the summer.
Students have begun the 3D models of the project proposals for the abandoned building attached to our school. Present them to Mr. Papa George at the end of May. WFC graduation is June 6th at 12 p.m. We'd love for you to join us at our celebration.
Thanks so much. Award.
Good afternoon. On Friday, April 25th, Pequot House continued its legacy of winning at our annual Battle of the Houses, hosted by the Student Forum. As a senior myself, it was great to watch the event and also help plan the event. I've watched the Ward student body grow throughout these last 4 years. You know, we were coming right after the pandemic. School spirit, engagement was low, and just watching it increase year after year was really great to see. And especially this final Battle of the Houses, seeing how amped the crowd was, that was great to see.
The Ward DECA team competed at internationals in Florida, and we're so proud of them for qualifying for this prestigious.
On May 2nd, the Fairfield Ward High School Drama Department opened its showing at the classical Cinderella musical. It was organized by Miss Mateen. This is her second show at Ward as a director. The performers did an outstanding job at bringing this classic back to life in the Ward Auditorium this year.
And the junior prom was held last Saturday at the Trumbull Marriott, and it was a fun event celebrating the junior class, and everybody looked great in your outfits.
This Friday, May 16th, we'll have senior prom at the FTC Fairfield Theater Company warehouse from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. We look forward to celebrating the class of 2025 seniors and their guests.
And then the Fairfield Ward High School National Honor Society had their induction ceremony, and it was to induct our current juniors into the Honor Society and to celebrate the successes of our senior class. The ceremony ended with a slideshow at the end with baby pictures and college decisions of where each senior will go.
And finally, but not leastly, the AP testing will conclude this Friday, followed by the last day of school for seniors on Tuesday, May 22nd. May 20th, tongue twister, sorry. The senior class of 2025 looks forward to working on their senior experience proposals. Thank you.
It's got a lot of stuff going on this time of year. This is next, Kelly.
Two questions. First, and I'm not sure if this is stepping on a hornet's nest, but I'm not hearing any athletics, any head-to-head competition results. Is that? Usually that comes up at some point. Next meeting. Okay. And then also I was wondering, if either of the two high schools, do they do anything to celebrate the May 1st, where most seniors, if they're, picking college commitment, is that any kind of an event at either school? And
Yeah, for us, I think seniors were encouraged to just represent their school. It was like a sweatshirt or shirt or whatever on that day.
On May 1st, we had college apparel, and then on May 8th, we had our bell ringing, where families and guests were invited to join. The students shared their plans for next year, rang the bell, took pictures, and wore their college apparel.
may I ask what apparel you wore?
I didn't get to participate because I had student forum duties at that time. But if I would have, it would have been Morehouse College, where I'll be back.
Congratulations.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to come in. We always appreciate the updates. We'll see you next time.
Yes.
Open it up to public comment. If anyone from the public wants to come up and make comment, up to 3 minutes on items on tonight's agenda, come forward to the table. And people stand up but not give comments. I guess we'll move on. We'll move on to presentations. Number 5A, the curriculum status update for family and consumer science. This is our year and a half warning about the coming revised and approved curriculum year, which I believe is 26-27. Start getting feedback from the board.
Good evening, everybody. I'm excited to be back in the third. And as Mr. Peterson said, though it seems far away, fall 2026, the department began working pretty early on its curriculum review. In alignment with the policy that was passed a year ago at this point, we seek public and board feedback prior to the review so that we make sure we can incorporate all those things that are. This evening, Ms. Mason, to my right, will be presenting as our Family and Consumer Science Liaison, where the department is and where it's going, and she'll introduce the teachers from the other sections of the Family and Consumer Science Department as well. In your packets, you have enrollment information, our presentation, as well as the memo which links the feedback document, where we are soliciting each of your members' feedback appropriate. It is active and will remain active until May 30th, prior to our next curriculum committee meeting, which is the first week of June. So with that, I'll pass it over to Ms. Mason, who will walk you through our presentation.
Hi, good evening. As I said, Kathleen Mason, and these are my colleagues and friends, Rachel Kelleher in the Human Development Department and Lori DeGrow in the Fashion Department. Just gonna go into the second slide. First, I just kind of wanted to discuss what family consumer science is and what it looks like in Fairfield Public Schools system. Family consumer science is a people-centered discipline that prepares students with practical skills for life and careers. We emphasize hands-on learning and the development of social and emotional intelligence and essential soft skills. Our FCS program consists of three main areas: culinary arts, fashion, and human development. Our culinary arts program starts in middle school and continues through high school, introducing students to culinary terms and techniques, preparation, presentation, as well as students having the opportunity to run restaurants. No, that was me. That was me. Probably should do this. Next up, our fashion and textile courses begin in the middle school and extend through the high school, offering students a strong foundation in sewing, design, illustration, as well as the business of fashion. In our human development courses, students explore the physical, emotional, and intellectual growth of children and understand how individuals and families influence that development. Students can then apply these skills in our on-site run preschool program serving the greater Fairfield community. Okay, in this slide, it just shows our curriculum starting from middle school. It starts at the middle school level with exploratory courses in grades 6 and 7. And in 8th grade, it is offered as a quarter long elective course, giving students hands-on experience with a limited time frame. These courses introduce students to essential terms and skills, creating a strong bridge into our high school program. Then at the high school level, we start off with our culinary program, beginning with introduction to culinary arts, which is a half-year course. And then there are three other half-year courses: baking and pastry, global foods, and regional American foods, which they have the choice of. Or they can choose to go on to a full-year course, which is food service 1, food service 2, and food service 3, which is the student-run restaurant. The partnership with Connecticut community colleges, students can earn a college credit with their work in food services. Additionally, motivated seniors may choose to complete their final year at Johnson & Wales University, earning both high school and freshman year credit. Then in our fashion program, it starts with Design 1, where students learn the foundational skills needed to create clothing. And from there, they can continue through designs 2, 3, and 4. These are all year-long courses that progressively build on their portfolio. For those interested in the business side of the industry, we have Fashion and Industry Strategies 1 and 2, as well as we have 2 standalone courses: interior design and digital design for apparel. We also, our next area is in human development, and this consists of 3 year-long courses: Child Development 1, Child Development 2, which is the preschool program, and Individual and Family Development, which is offered for UConn ECE credit. We have approximately 35 students enrolled in this course, giving students a head start on their post-secondary career. Okay, these are just the ECE courses that are currently offered through our discipline. And these are the FCS aligned pathway courses. Our FCS pathway programs have launched students into top colleges and careers. Culinary students have gone on to work in restaurants, becoming chefs and owning their own businesses. And I have just a testimonial from one of our students saying, "I was part of the food service in my junior year. It was a real great experience because it allowed me to try out the industry while still having the safety net in class. Now I have my associates from Johnson & Wales in baking and pastry, working on a bachelor's from management. I actually work for the university as part of the culinary admissions, where I am a manager." Our fashion students have studied fashion design and costume design, as well as the business of fashion at institutes such as Parsons Paris, SCAD, Marist, and even our own valedictorian went on to Cornell to study fashion design. Students from our human development courses have pursued careers in education, psychology, and social work. Quoting one former student saying, "Now looking back at high school, I realized that being able to make a lesson plan and plan for a whole day in the preschool really helped me. I see how valuable it was in college and in my real life as a teacher." These are just a few examples of the feedback that we have gotten throughout the years. Students telling us how prepared they felt and how confident they felt due to taking our classes. Okay, so since our last curriculum goal, we have adjusted the implementation middle school schedule. We are ensuring district-wide consistency by aligning our assessments across grade levels. We are empowering students to take ownership of their learning through more student agency and the use of portfolios and reflections. We've placed a strong emphasis on developing soft skills, which are critical for success in any field. STEAM integration is happening all across FCS courses, whether it's understanding food chemistry, applying engineering and math and pattern making, or using the principles of psychology and child development. Our culinary students have also had the opportunity to now earn an industry recognized Serve Safe certification. And we have increased experiential learning opportunities through labs, community service, or project-based activities to boost engagement and real world skill development. So to ensure that our program remains relevant, we analyzed our existing courses by looking at the course content and what aligns with the industry trends, student interest, and post-secondary demands. We looked at other school districts' curriculum from neighboring districts, and we analyzed course requests and enrollment trends from the last 5 years. We also heard from students to get feedback on their experiences and interest. And based on our analysis, we would like to propose the following changes. Update the curriculum to ensure our contents are aligned with their student learning outcomes. Revise several course names to better reflect content and to make it more engaging in the program of studies. For example, fashion industry strategies would be the business of fashion. We would like to propose a new baking and pastry 2 course, and we would like to propose we're going to restructure the fashion, which I'll get into in further slides, and introduce an introduction to fashion course where students will understand the fashion industry as a whole. And lastly, we are looking to strengthen the career readiness of students having an opportunity to earn a CDA certification in child development. So here you can see our current courses, and our one course under consideration would be Baking and Pastry 2. Baking and Pastry 2 would be a half-year course, and in the culinary field, in the industry, there are basically 2 lines of studies or specializations, a culinary arts and a baking and pastry. And we feel like adding this Baking and Pastry 2 course would reflect that with, how things are structured in the real world. As I mentioned, this would be a half-year credit course, giving the students another opportunity to stay in FCS programs if they couldn't fit a full year course, such as food services, into their schedule. Student interest is very high. It builds on the foundations of Intro to Culinary as well as Baking and Pastry 1. So we created a survey with possible new courses, and the top choice was there. It was Baking and Pastry 2. We had them rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. And you probably can't see those numbers, but you can see them on your thing. Roughly 70% of school, 70% of students rated it as either a 4 or 5, that they would be most likely to take the course. And if you see on the right-hand picture, the Baking and Pastry request, this aligns, with their interest, showing a strong enrollment or request for Baking and Pastry 1. What are in parentheses is the alternate choice. That's what's in parentheses there. So we also noticed that in other districts, that there is a second baking and pastry course in their curriculums as well. Now, the cost of it is hard to predict. So if we took the numbers based on this survey, say we took the 100 and we'll just say rated as a 5, the 108 students. That would have roughly, I mean, we all know that there's different factors that are going to play into this, whether, kids actually do sign up for it, whether it fits into their schedule. And we have to also think about the room allowance as well. So if the 108 students who said yes, number 5, they would sign up, that would equate to roughly 7 sections. But like I said, the space accommodations, it would only equate to a 0.6 position. Now, from an equipment standpoint, there wouldn't be any major equipment. It would be small tools. It would be consumables and ingredients. And after this, our next slide is our slide for the fashion design pathway. And after we analyzed the enrollment trends and the curriculum standards in our fashion program, we realized that we had to, we needed a more sustainable approach. And to address this, we created a new course called Intro to Fashion. So Intro to Fashion would be a kind of a blending of the business of fashion and design 1. We feel that by giving them both of these elements, it's kind of front loading their foundational knowledge, and then they can be more informed to make the decision whether they want to kind of go down the design pathway or the business pathway. As a result of that, fashion 2, 3, and 4 would obviously have to be changed to adapt that the fact that fashion design would potentially only be, they'd be getting the skills for only a half a year, since half the year might be, would be business. And lastly, we are looking at a new certification to consider. It's in keeping with FPS goal to enhance employment opportunities. We are strengthening our child development pathway for students to be eligible to earn a nationally recognized child development associate certification upon graduation. And lastly, our FCS courses support the mission, goals, and vision of the graduate by preparing our students with real-world skills and mindsets to thrive. And FCS, Family Consumer Science, is adapting to remain relevant by updating and restructuring our existing program, thus meeting the needs and interests of our students.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
These are always exciting ones to hear about.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions, Mr. Krasnoff?
Just have a quick comment. I want to thank you. This is one of the first things the curriculum committee has gotten together and seen the presentation, given some feedback of questions and, ideas of not necessarily reading off the actual presentation. And I know you were a little nervous. I just want to say
A lot.
you did an excellent job. I appreciate it. Most of the feedback we gave didn't make it into the presentation. So I do want to thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Raisin.
Yeah, I have a question on the, if we could look at the 3-year enrollment page here. And focusing down on just these numbers 4 and 2 with the 24-25 year.
Wait, not the one on the slide, this one?
This packet, it's,
Oh, the packet, okay, gotcha.
I guess it would be page 3,
Okay,
the course 3-year period. So, I mean, obviously you can see with the baking and pastry and highlighted that, the enrollments, but can you talk a little bit about, it looks like these courses were run with just 4 and 2 for.
what do you mean 4 and 2?
I'm hoping you can explain it to me.
Okay, so, I'll just look at this, I'll start with, pardon me?
Fashion and design 4, how about that?
Oh, fashion design 4, okay,
Fashion design 4 is generally a nested class with fashion design 3.
yes.
So yeah, the
Yeah, they
class,
run combined together.
the class ran, but it ran with the 3 degrees, which is why in our presentation, we tried to group them as one course, because it was a discussion we had. Should we continue keeping fashion and design 4 on the books if the enrollment wasn't sustaining? And because it's nested in 4.
And then is the same the case for the number below, the 2 in fashion, industry and strategies? Because it looks like strategies 2 was not enrolled, but then we had 2 people at Ward for strategies 1. Where were they nestled? Because we didn't run a course with just 2 people. Assuming.
I was doing as well. I would have to check the course sections, which I don't have in me right now.
Okay.
But I did get that information.
Okay, great. And then,
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
yeah,
But I thought this was indicating that a section was run of just 2 people.
It says enrolled, nested run. I don't know if it was nested somewhere, which is what I have to check.
Well, it says fashion industry strategies 1, 2, fashion industry strategies 2 didn't even enroll, but there was a section of it at Ward for 2 people.
I just don't know if that section is grouped with another section on there.
maybe it's a question I had if it
No,
was.
but there's no other course, so they might have been grouped with a completely different course.
Can I speak to that? So we had a fashion industries 1 and there were 2 students in it.
That
It
was,
was not an industries 2.
so there was a class that was run with just 2 students. And just out of curiosity, I'm not trying to be critical, but why? Cause I see that we have, in the previous things, we have like requested, alternate, like thresholds. We've always talked about thresholds. How do we determine those here? Cause I could see if it was a level 2, like they had already taken the first thing, then you wanna continue on and give them the opportunity. I'm just curious about that.
I think that traditionally the class has been offered for 10, 11th and 12th graders. I started in 2020. I can't speak to what happened prior to that. So a lot changed during that COVID run. I think that if it was open to 9th graders and giving them an exposure and an introduction to it, the enrollment would probably go back to what was prior to that. But there was some sort of disconnect that happened somewhere during the COVID years. And that when we started having just open to 10th and 11th and 12th graders, and only having it for half a year, I think that a lot of students, either they were signing up, but were unable because of maybe their schedule, or they were unable to come into it as a 9th grader. So they were missing the boat somewhere in between.
So I get that, but when I look at the previous 2 years, we had 8 at Ludlow, 8 at Ward. And then the year before, we had 8 at Ludlow, so it just seems like a big drop off well past that COVID time.
Yeah, to be honest,
There was a year that the class just was not run. They chose not to run the class as well.
but he's asking, they running.
I'd have to check.
I
with
don't-
high school
I don't know.
administration.
Yeah, the administration would have to be able to answer that. I don't know if there was,
Let me check with the high school administration.
Yeah, we don't need to spend any more time on it. I'd appreciate that
Get
feedback.
an answer why that decision was made.
And then my last question was kind of the same with regard to the food services 3. I think you touched on that, but where it mentions ECE in 24-25. But it looks like this has traditionally been a very low enrolled class. Is this nestled within?
yes, it is.
The one that you mentioned that was
Yeah,
nestled, so
services 1, 2, and 3 are nestled.
all together. Okay.
Yep.
That explains that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and I think that, in our curriculum committee meeting, we spoke a bit about this idea of nesting classes. And what is so interesting, I think, about this particular area of study is that it can work there. It doesn't always work, but it can work. In some other subject areas, it doesn't. So we talked about that, that's for the board information. And so I'm glad to see that we're taking advantage of that and not running some tiny classes across the board. The other thing I just wanted to draw attention to, is this memo that's from Dr. Gavjancic. And it asks the board members to use a live link that he established through, are you gonna be, I don't know if he's gonna be sending a separate email, but I just wanted to sort of share sort of how this came about with the board. So in the past, we've always given input prior to presentations. This time we sort of flipped it around, and the idea was for people that aren't as familiar with the program, including myself, you would sort of have something to react to, right? So when you open up this link, we've made changes to it. It's like based on the that we used before, where it's this form that we would fill out. But it's sort of like an easy breezy version of it. So whatever you have in mind that you want to input, you should be able to type that in quickly and easily. And when you go to the pull down menu, I can almost guarantee you're gonna find a subject that fits into. If it doesn't, just pick one. And there's a deadline of May 30th. But the curriculum committee is looking for feedback. So if you're finding, oh my goodness, I need so much more time because this is something that I really want to delve into, or whatever the feedback is, we would want to know that. And then we'll be looking at those responses in the curriculum committee to see if board members are in fact responding, if they're interested in being a part of this process. And so if you have feedback on that as well, we would go with that.
Just a word out there. I just want to say that if there isn't feedback, because sometimes I don't get feedback, it doesn't mean that I'm not interested, but it might mean that I don't have anything else to add. So just
That's
make that clear, just the way,
Thank you for that, and that's valid, and I appreciate it. And also, if you feel the need to repeat something, don't feel that it's redundant. If you want to repeat it, that's totally fine, or you don't have to, but we're trying to, we're experimenting with different processes here. So try it out, see what you like, what you don't like, give us feedback, and hopefully that will help you in your planning. I mean, that's sort of the goal.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. A few small questions. The new Intro to Fashion course, does that become a prerequisite for both Fashion Design 2 and Business of Fashion 1?
It would just be the prerequisite for fashion design too.
Okay, so you could still take, they would have the choice between that intro to fashion or that business, so they could kind of come from either or, correct?
Correct.
That's wonderful. And you said that you audited local 6 to 12 curriculum. Was there any vast differences you found, any goals, any big gaps? Obviously, you know, we're a small state in Connecticut, we have lots of, but is there anything you saw that you were like, we would love to try that or something?
Not a significant, speaking and looking at the culinary and you speak the development. There were some schools that, you know, did more like a pro start, which is like a national program, and I think like not North Haven, it was New Haven. I have the information in here. But like, you know, we looked at, I believe we looked at Trumbull, New Canaan, Newtown, Greenwich, and some of them have the global foods, some of them have the baking and pastry 1 and baking pastry 2. There's places that have a cafe or a restaurant as well. There's a few of them that do. So I wouldn't say there was a vast
You
difference.
wouldn't use the word gap, you would just use differences or.
Yeah, there's differences, and it could be just like the name of it or things like that, but nothing that I would have been like, oh, this is really cool. Let's see if we can do something
Well,
like
to
that.
Ms. Guernsey's point, we kind of have one opportunity to put our feedback into that document. So if there is something you were seeing, I would love to hear that, to kind of give some feedback on that.
Okay.
Thank you. And then just, I think my last question, middle school curriculum, students only have the choice in 8th grade, correct? To select into these programs?
Yes.
Do we have any enrollment data for middle school?
Actually, I don't have that.
I know that our middle school students have it's a lot more rigid in terms of their selections. I would be a little interested to see in what our middle schoolers are selecting. That's zero rush, but that could be a Good Friday packet enclosure. Thank you.
Can I follow up to that? I don't know if you meant what they're requesting versus, because I know there are limitations on the middle school classroom, so.
I would love to see.
Are requesting and then how many are enrolling?
Absolutely, thank you.
Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just pulled up the program of studies and to Mr. Ace's point, the intro class is open to ninth grade.
The intro to culinary arts or which one? Yes. Did I say it wasn't open to?
Were you talking, I think you were talking about how something switched along the way. Was that for?
Oh, that was fashion.
Fashion design is also, fashion is also open to
Fashion.
grade 9.
Yes, to design one class is, but our proposed thing for the intro to fashion, is that way, I'm looking.
Well, we were discussing the low enrollment and one of the challenges
Oh, for
of
the
the
fashion
class was that it wasn't open to grade 9, but it is open to grade.
That was new this year.
That was new. So last year it wasn't.
No, right, it wasn't.
Okay.
That was,
Then-
because we tried to open up to thinking maybe that would change things, but yeah.
And then I'm just noticing for fashion too, and thinking about the enrollment, like most of these classes are full year. Culinary's got a bunch of 0.5s. And I just, as we study things, and I'm not saying that this is a universal statement, that it seems 0.5s are easier to fit or verbal, whatever it might be. So I don't know if I can put this into the sheet, but the 0.5 thing seems to be an issue along the way here. And then my last comment in question is, and I'm not sure who this question is for, but why is the child development track the only track of the 3 tracks that is not available to grade 9?
It never has been, or at least I've been here since 2006, and it never has been. The idea or the philosophy behind it is that they are not mature enough to deal with the content. Child Development 1 starts with conception, pregnancy, birth, and we find that it's.
Good answer. I just wanted to ask why that one track was available. All right, thank you.
Mr. Ace.
Yeah, my last question, with regard to the human development in this child development associate certification.
Yeah.
So I was just pulling up really quickly and it looks like there is it's a wonderful accreditation. I mean, it's surprised that it's available to high school students that haven't even gotten to the point of being able to, work in the field. But it does seem that there's a decent cost associated with that certification.
So we are at the very beginning of this process. So myself and then Vicky Hastings, who runs the program at Ludlow, we started in September, and as with any bureaucracy, we are working our way slowly through it. But it should be that there should not be a cost associated with it. Basically, we as the school will register with them, and as part of that, they provide us with these various resources and so on, and do the operations.
Unlike if I were looking forward to do an online certification where I would pay $450, you would be the school that the student is in versus me going to an online school. So therefore you could waive the fee. But there must be some fee that you have to,
I'm guessing eventually, but we'll get back to you on that because as I say, right now we're working our way through. So.
Just curious about the budgetary impacts, but it sounds like they'll be minimal. So thank you.
Ms. Mexico.
Hi, thank you. Few questions. First, I did want to, and I know we're not going to get the answers tonight, but I did want to follow up on Mr. Ace's initial point regarding the sections. And one of the reasons why that's very much of concern to me, and again, I know without the head principals here, we can't answer that right now. But one thing that we get asked off and on all the time and often by other town bodies is, why don't you do an audit of your courses? And what our answer has been for my tenure consistently for 14 years is, we don't need an audit. The course selection process provides us with the audit so that we make an efficient allocation of staff. And so we have to be able to defend that. And so to find out that a course may have run with only 2 people in it, 2 students in it, is concerning and is something that I would hope would factor into, just in general, when that becomes a pattern, it should factor into the existence of the course at all. Or does it need to be, a tweak midway of combined with something, whatever it might be. But, I just want to kind of piggyback on Mr. Ace's point that you're exactly in this process. You're about to get, if you don't have already, the 2025-26 data. And if there's a pattern, then I would hope that that could factor into your curriculum work. Because we very much rely on our, being good stewards of our FTEs, that we trust this audit process, and that's why we've never done one. So I just wanted to piggyback on that point.
Can I add to that? I actually just met with my house principal and we were talking about numbers, and the numbers did increase, and I'm sorry, I did not write the exact number down, but the number for that class did increase significantly for next year. The sign up did, whether, I don't know how many of those students will be able to take the course, but I know that it went up significantly.
And that's, I mean, again, it's
Yeah.
always a credit to the course, and I know staff works very hard to sell their courses in any way that they can. But my concern is that someone's part of their 1.0, FTE position, if it was being allocated to teaching 2 students in a classroom that could have had 10 or 15 students, we also consistently say in our budget book, we will not run a course that runs below this threshold, and this was an entry-level course. And thus, again, I'm not looking to keep going. I know Dr. Zavajancic will get us answers, but that's why we have that concern, is that we answer for that beyond these walls. Couple of other, I think it was Mrs. Flynn that just asked, the new Intro to Fashion course you were talking about, you said it's not a prerequisite to the business of fashion, but you also said it is incorporating or planning to incorporate some of the business of fashion material in it. So then wouldn't that just be redundant?
So the intro to fashion would be exposing the students to what the industry is. So what I've found in my experience in the class is that I get a large enrollment for Design 1, but those students are also very interested in what happens in the industry. So just like many of the other electives, I felt that there was it was missing this introductory course where the students can come in, get exposed to a lot of what happens in this field, and then they can make those choices. So what they would be exposed to is history, current trends, but in addition to design. What does design mean? What's the impact of design to the industry? But once you move into the business side, so if they feel that I really have more of an interest in merchandising and production or public relations and the thousands of other careers that there are, once they get into the business of fashion, that's where that would be explored.
And so that business of fashion course would simply then not touch upon all of those other topics?
It would, but it wouldn't be as extensive as it is in the intro course.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm also glad that the topic of the middle school came up, because I don't see anything indicated here that you're looking for any changes.
They're nothing, no, they did not want any major changes. They're gonna rewrite it so just the wording of it for the best practices and student learning outcomes, but they didn't want any major changes to that.
And so, and I'm just assuming then that the enrollment, again, that middle school side, because as I recall, they had 8 electives that they chose and they ended up getting scheduled into 4.
Correct.
That whatever it is that in this field you're offering, it's still, it's still meeting
actually
children's interests.
Correct, yes, and actually I had Jean over at Woods, actually, we had our department meeting at school today saying that, I know last year she was saying how the enrollment was very strong, that but she's the only one person that they probably could have run 2 in the fashion. So,
Okay.
yeah, but I don't have the exact numbers, that was just her personal.
Well, obviously, if we're having difficulties with enrollment, I assume it would have been
Right.
concerted.
Yeah.
It was just noteworthy.
So she was like, oh, well, maybe they will give me none.
Okay, hold on, a couple of other questions. First of all, I was thrilled to hear that about the connection to Johnson and Wales. I mean, how incredibly prestigious to have a connection that you can speak to. So, very exciting to hear that. Also regarding, and I'm definitely putting into the document, but we ask all the time about, we have the health and safety graduation requirement. Do you see, and this is probably just right over to Dr. Zavajancic, who's already smiling because he keeps hearing us ask this. Do you see any part of this curriculum being able to fulfill any part of that? Any part, like any individual course? Or is that not being considered?
Currently not being considered. Put it in a document, we'll look forward to it. It would have to meet obviously the statutory requirement for health and safety. I don't have that answer on my, the department would have to incorporate those standards within their curriculum if we were gonna do that.
Okay, I will put it in. I was very important when I saw that we had till May 30th on that, so. And then I also had a question about the combining of the 3s and the 4s, because I know my children went through that and they were separate. And I was curious what made you make that decision, because they are so developmentally different at that point. So was this, and it also would seem like that really cuts down on the number of kids who can partake of the program also.
So initially it was to do with COVID, because obviously when COVID hit, we separated them. So one group came Monday, Tuesday, we had Wednesday to, clean and spray and scrub, and then the others came Thursday, Friday. But subsequent to that, what we've discovered is that it is the number of families who can partake in a preschool that is offered from 9:15 to 12 is getting more and more limited, because it means you have to have either a non-working parent or an available grandparent, or and so ultimately it was based off to get the 12 schoolers enrolled in both schools each year. It worked better for the families if they could have at least 4 mornings with that time slot as opposed to just 2.
Makes sense.
And then what we have done, I mean, and you raise a point, there's a developmental difference, but from the high school perspective, it's quite marvelous, because they really can see now that difference between a young 3, and an old 4, and really, so in some ways it's actually turned out to be very beneficial. And for the preschoolers, they're just as happy as can be, so.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? So we thank you very much for the presentation. Seems like
Thank you.
well received, and then watch the spreadsheet.
We'll send that out as an email if you want it. You want that, okay.
I think it's, yeah, probably. We'll move on to item 5B, first read and presentation of teacher and leader evaluation plan proposal.
Right, so we were here around this time last year after the state passed legislation on teacher evaluation processes. So I'm just gonna go through some background information, and then one of the changes that our Professional Development and Evaluation Council, which is PDAC, PDEC, made in the course of this year, which are in the red line document attached to the so just to, again, give some background, our PDAC is the collaborative decision-making body, which not only looks at teacher evaluation, I should say leader evaluation goes along with that, but also the professional development schedule and the professional learning plan in the district. So we were looking this year or next year, the 2026 school year. Currently, there are 34 individuals on the PDAC team. There's at least 1 member represented from every school in the district, sometimes more than one, and it spans both the teaching ranks, the administrative ranks, and per legislation must include paraprofessional on that committee. They are required to have a. You may remember last year, the state also left up to the RESC, CES, ACES, and so forth to create a plan that schools could have, or districts could have adopted wholesale. Fairfield decided to take some of that, leave some other parts of it, and adopt its own plan. So we did not adopt that in its entirety, which is we enacted our first plan this past year. And remember, the main goals of the legislation in the plan were to differentiate roles in evaluation so that it wasn't size fits all, reduce some of the paperwork burdens that were placed upon teachers and leaders there, to look at growth over time, connect it to the professional development plan, and for administrators to be providing actionable feedback to teachers and others who were being evaluated. The bottom bullet there is what we've utilized as our performance indicators. So CCT is the Connecticut Common Core of Teaching. CCT-SD is the Common Core of Teaching Service Delivery. That one's, those performance standards are enacted for individuals like our special education teachers, school psychologists, speech language pathologists who don't have a traditional classroom role. And the rubrics, which are in your packet, which are single points now, didn't naturally connect to their everyday job duties. We also use the leader evaluation rubric for anyone who is serving in an 092 administrative role there. Again, we shifted these, although it wasn't a requirement, to a single point competency, meaning that the standard is the standard. You've either hit it or there's growth for next steps within there, but there was no longer 4 dimensions in terms of approaching standard, meeting standard or exceeding standard. So this past year, we reviewed the plan and how it was going. We give it some time to, people to get used to it after goal setting and some observations. And then PDEC reconvenes, looks page by page at the plan, what was going well, what they would like to see some changes for, leading ultimately up to a vote of that committee to move the plan that is before you today for a vote of this Board of Education, which happened in April. In terms of differentiation of roles, we call those cohorts in district, and we technically have 3 cohorts, which you'll see there. Cohort 3 is the one that gets to select their option. So if a teacher or leader falls within the qualifications or the criteria of cohort 3, they can pick either an action research project, 5 informals, or what we had was a unit-based supervision. Perhaps over the 10 weeks, they get all of their evaluations. Again, that's at the bottom of the chart, and you'd have to meet those qualifications. If you're in 1 or 2, cohort 1 or 2, it was assigned to you. You don't get a choice. 1 was 2 formals and 2 informals, very similar to the plan we had prior to last year. And cohort 2, these were individuals new to Fairfield Public Schools, but experienced, and that was experienced teachers, I should say. And that was a point we heard over and over again, that there were experienced teachers coming to us that were getting placed in sort of a new role under evaluation, a novice teacher role under evaluation, which is what differentiated 1 and 2. Our 3s are folks who are tenured in district, which is where the options come in. The percent to the far right of the column there, I just wanted to give you some data on who chose which or who was placed in which. So this is a percentage of leaders across the district who fall in each of those 5 categories that you see up there. For 25-26, overall, I can say the plan is generally remaining the same. There's not broad changes. The PDEC committee generally likes the plan. It has reduced the burdens, those 5 bullet points I talked about on the second slide, and it's generally going well there. We have no changes to our single point competencies or our performance indicators like the CCT. We have no changes to our goal setting practices. That includes the beginning, middle, and end of year process with an administrator or your evaluator. We have no changes to the forms, which you may remember were the appendices of the plan. We have no changes right now to supportive action planning or corrective action planning when a teacher either requires more support to move back to a tier 1, if they were in a tier 2 or 3, or if they were placed on a corrective action plan within there. The changes we are proposing to you tonight is first the removal of tenure needed in Connecticut to allow teachers with years of experience out of Connecticut to move into various cohorts. So our cohort 2 said Connecticut tenure. We don't think that's helping the plan at all. If you've achieved tenure in another state, we think you should be able to move within those categories a little bit more quickly than starting as a brand new teacher in cohort 1. The state, this is a technical change. Number 2, the addition of teachers being supervised by an 092 and 093. That has to happen. We just didn't include it in the actual writing of the first plan we gave to you. So again, we just added it in. That is currently happening. And again, the page numbers, if you're trying to see where I'm reading this from, are on the slide as well. Another technical change within the leader rubric, it talks about organizational health as an indicator of a school leader's performance or an administrator's performance. So to align with the rubric, we wanted to make sure that language was included as one of the areas that they could be looking for in goal setting and performance. Inclusion of site-based, again, a technical change, site-based with specified leadership cohort. So the administrators who are building administrators generally get a site visit versus what a teacher may have, which is an informal, where a principal or assistant principal goes into their classroom at any time of any day and does an evaluation. The same kind of happens for our building administrators, but we call it a site visit. So again, another type of change within there. This one here, it looks like I'm on the fifth one now. Cohort 3, we originally planned for 5 informal. Those are unannounced, shorter than formal visits into a classroom for a teacher. We'd like to shift that to 4 within the new plan. And then in terms of supportive planning and corrective action planning, the PDEC committee felt that we should add language, again, a technical change regarding optional union representation. Members tiers 2 and 3 are considered supportive, not disciplinary within this plan, but they felt that it was necessary that teachers know that at any point they can choose or elect to bring a union rep with them if that were going to be the case. And then finally, PDEC felt that language around the supportive planning being time bound so that it wasn't something that goes on forever, right? We're gonna say you're in tier 2, these are the supportive action plans, and it's time bound for the next 6 weeks versus an indefinite time frame, which gives people a little more clear direction and areas to work towards. The next steps here, again, PDEC had voted this out. They're at their level, members of the dual decision-making body here. You, Board of Education, are all required to approve the plan that we submit to the state after PDEC does, which is before you today. Once approved, I generally submit to the state in summer when they ask for it, and then we enact it in the following school year.
Great, thank you. Mr. Racer?
Yeah, on page 5 of the slides. Just out of curiosity, you know approximately, you might, if you don't know it now, it's fine. What percentage of our evaluated staff is cohort 3? Compared to the total body? 75% are total. And then on page 7, the bullet point when we talked about change cohort 3 from 5 informal to 4. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that and what's your thinking behind that?
So the group, it aligns more closely with the quarter system, and I know our elementary and middle schools are on a trimester, but it aligns nicely with the quarter system in the school year. Be divided into quarters. Also, the fifth is it wasn't necessary at the end once 4 was done. The principals and the teachers felt as if they had enough information. I could find that they were moving through pretty early on in the year that they didn't use that many observations that are get a good read and determine if teachers met standards.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Just out of curiosity, maybe you mentioned it, I didn't hear it. Does this have to be approved by any of the union, the teachers union or anything, or are they on board, or is this standard for everyone?
So the Professional Development Council has teachers and admin on it, including members of the FEA who vote to move it forward.
Jacobs?
Thank you for all the work. I'm in the doc that's got the edits on it, the actual red line. So I just have one question. There was some redlining around the term organizational health. Seems to be a prevalent change. I read the definition. I get it, what it says on the paper. What's driving that? Who brought it? What are we hoping to achieve by adding that? And what's the issue that's addressing?
The district did not drive it. It was driven by the state, so they read through our plans and make sure, so I guess they have a rubric of this for a fact.
Okay. Their recommendation to us was that we needed to.
You got it. They said add another bullet in to align to the rubric, right? Organizational health, because it's in there, but it was not driven by PDEC or the district.
Just so we have a better understanding as a new item,
Sure.
what does that mean? Like, what are we looking to?
that question for?
Yeah.
Okay, again, it was a state driven, it generally relates to school climate and culture, and how things are going there. I don't believe anybody picked that for their plan at the current year that we're in. But it is an option moving forward if that is something a school leader or building leader, district leader, I guess, feels is necessary to improve the culture, climate, and as a result, achievement of their students in the school.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Maxwell.
Hi, thank you. A couple of questions. The removal of tenure needed in Connecticut to move them, just so I'm right, you're coming from Massachusetts, you're teaching here, it's still the same rule of start of fourth year as when you get tenure.
I don't have, so that's a state law. Each state has their own tenure law. I don't have that at my fingertips of what each state determines.
No, Connecticut.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
So that when they come to Fairfield Public Schools, they get tenure as of the fourth year.
unless they've achieved tenure somewhere else, yes. As of the 40th, completed 40th month, so the first day of their fifth year.
First day of the fifth year, you're ten.
So if you have tenure in any other state, you come to Fairfield Public Schools. You do not enter with tenure, or you do? Don't, so you need that 40 months. So my question is that experience aside, they're requesting to move to the committee is requesting that they move straight to cohort 3, correct?
Cohort 2. They've achieved tenure in another place, but they are not tenured in Fairfield. So they would stay as a cohort 2 for less time, before they go to cohort 3. The cohort 3 means you've achieved tenure in.
I understand that, but what are you saying that they are in cohort 1 and they're moving to cohort 2? You're saying the recommended change would mean they're asking. All right, then I'm misunderstanding this first bullet point on the 7th slide.
So if you were to achieve tenure in another district in Connecticut or another state, you would start in cohort 2.
You wouldn't start where a brand new teacher starts.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought they were asking to start in cohort 3, and that was.
No, we wanted to differentiate a brand new teacher to the profession versus an experienced teacher new to Fairfield, which is the difference between cohort 1 and cohort 2.
Okay, I hope you're the same as I.
Think I know.
Right now,
Maybe
what's the change then? That's what I'm now unclear on what the change is.
Change, so right now, if you were in Massachusetts, to use your example, and achieved tenure.
Right.
You were placed in cohort 1. We're asking for.
So this whole cohort 2 is brand new?
No, it only applied to Connecticut school districts this year. We're now applying it broadly to if you have achieved tenure.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
If you came from another state, you were placed in cohort 1 with the candidate who just came out of Quinnipiac, for example.
Okay.
So to distinguish between the two.
Oh, because this wasn't redlined at
I didn't
all.
know.
No, and that's fine. That's why I was misunderstanding and I was.
I'm sorry, that is current data that I gave you in the slideshow, the red lines, that's the other.
Can I just do a quick follow-up? So just to be clear, if you're coming from Massachusetts and you've been a teacher for 8 years and you're tenured, you will still start in 2 here. How do you accomplish 3? So we're giving them credit, right, for?
Yes, we're giving them credit and they'd have to be here for 2 years and then they would go to cohort 3.
Thank you. So how would you do what I'm interested in after this first year, because without all of the formals and the initial meeting, the mid-year goal check-in, the post-year and all of that, how are you finding this year? And I don't know if you can have any administrators to speak to this. In terms of I was trying not to look behind you.
I know who was here today.
Yeah, but I'm curious about how effective you found this to be in terms of teachers reflecting on their practice. And that's one question, and then while hopefully somebody's getting ready to move, I was hoping you could tell us how the action research project has gone, because I was very, very dubious about that.
So just to be clear, everybody still has a beginning, middle, and end of year conference within the plan. We've not gotten rid of that.
But
A goal setting conference.
in terms of and so is it the same level of reflection? I mean, like data check-in and all of that, or is it, cause I thought this was supposed to be easing that burden to a degree.
Well, it got rid of, you might remember the language around slows, IAGDs. So there were 4 components in the past, right? Every teacher had to grade slows. Within them, they had IAGDs, they had a parent feedback goal, they had a student feedback goal if they were in secondary, they had climate goal. So it has reduced all of that. They essentially have a goal now within their plan that they meet about, they discuss the data with. There's a beginning, middle, and end of year process with it. So it definitely has reduced that burden. It is focused, it is streamlined, and it allows them to look at and improve on something that's important to them, their students, and the school in alignment with the school improvement plan. In terms of the practice, I'll let Dr. Hassis talk about what he implements it on a daily basis, I'm sure.
Thank you. I think that it's been a very positive change in the evaluation process. To me, the thing I see the most in terms of shifting is less typing and reading and more talking, more of that collaborative conversation about the single point rubric in terms of like the skills that are being measured and, strategies that teachers can employ, based on those conversations. So I think, in all honesty, that was always, I think for most administrators, felt like the most powerful part of the evaluation process. And this has really shifted, more of that than a lot of writing. So I think value added from that perspective. The earlier, Dr. Jeff Zavajancic mentioned the change from the 5 informals to the 4. For the teachers who chose that pathway, or administrators, who were doing that, that was the thing that they found, to be honest with you, the most burdensome this year in terms of trying to schedule it. Toward the end of the year, for especially house principals who are do a lot of the evaluating, are running PPTs for the annual reviews, but also the transition PPTs from 8th grade to 9th grade. And then they realize they still have maybe 2 more informals they have to get to. So it's become a real crunch time this time of year in particular. So we still haven't seen that play out totally, but that was a big ask and we'd be grateful for that move to 4. Action research you asked about, it wasn't a large percentage of teachers, at least at the high school level, who chose that model. So it's a smaller number, but for those people who wanted it, they are very excited about the projects. And we have seen some real innovation coming out of those projects, teachers choosing things that not just are for their own practice, but to increase the, things that are happening at the school-wide level. Maybe engaging student leaders, more was one of the projects that, a group is working on. And most of those are 2-year projects, so we still are only halfway through, if you will. So this was a year of a lot of more research, where next year I think we'll see a lot more of the piloting and implementation of their ideas. So I think we can be very excited about some of those projects because there was agency for the teachers to be able to choose those topics, still under the guise of the school improvement plan. So had to tie to those overall goals. So.
And that was one thing I can't recall from last year's discussion. How much say did the evaluator have in what the project would be? In other words, to what degree was it colored by this would be a benefit to Fairfield Public Schools as opposed to just this is your personal area of interest?
I think the teachers were the ones that brought forward their topics, and then an administrator might be able to just say like, oh, you may not know about this, but there's this issue, in this aspect of the school, and if you could focus on that as well. So in that, I can't speak for everyone, but at least, for the ones I worked with and most of the team that I work with at Ludlow, it was the teachers' ideas, and it just through that conversation maybe expanded. Some teachers just have that mindset where they might be in a role of a leader in one way, either as a liaison or, with the FEA. So they've already seen it as a system approach rather than just their individual classroom. So it's a balance of both, I think.
We do expect the evaluators to prove goals within the light of the school and district improvement.
Thank you. I think that was it for me. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Dr. Zavjensek, I assume you would like to see this back on the, our agenda on the 27th in 2 weeks?
Ready to go.
Thank you very much. Moving along, our consent calendar. Unanimous consent to waive the reading, 3 sets of minutes. May I have a motion to put this, motion to approve? Mr. Asa, seconded by Mrs. Guernsey. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Vote is unanimous, 8-0. Thank you. Move on to Dwight Ed specs, and before I put this motion on the table, I did want to draw attention to, it's on the agenda as an approval. And last meeting, we talked about it as a first read. It had come before us for kind of review and comment twice, coming to us now. I think this is a good idea to do it now. We've gone through it pretty constructively and deeply. I know Facilities Committee has spent a lot of time on it. And also I wanted to point out that tomorrow there is a meeting of the working group at Town Hall tomorrow that I'll be attending. And I think it would be great to go in there with an approved document rather than wait 2 more weeks to do that. But if anyone is uncomfortable kind of jumping the gun on this, I'm happy to put a motion myself to put this postponed for time certain for the 27th.
You need motion, put it on the table first and then.
Well, I'm trying to get a sense of the body now, if they're, well, if.
I mean, whatever the board wants to do. I mean, there was 2 edits from last time. That's all there was, and I haven't received, if that helps anyone, there was only 2 minor edits from last time. Our April 9th version, and I just, if it helps anyone, I didn't receive anything from anyone in the interim, so. If you, I know that you made the executive decision to put it on this way, so I know I'm comfortable with it moving forward.
If anyone's uncomfortable, I guess speak now, or I'll ask for a motion to put on the table. All right, old business, approval of April 23rd, 2025 revised Dwight Ed specs, educational specifications with the recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the April 23rd, 2025 revised draft Dwight Elementary educational specifications by Mrs. Jacobson, seconded by Mrs. Flynn. Any questions or comments?
Your Hanson is on if we need him for anything. He is participating, just to let you know.
Are you waving or asking a question, Mr.
I'm waving.
Okay, I just am gonna make it just clarifications if I will.
Sure.
So, just for the edification of everyone, page 3, you will see the first edit that was made from our last time in 2 places. You will see MP replaced with SLAM, so up in under the project, and then also the enrollment projections. So that edit was made in both places. Thank you, Mr. Tinson. And then page 27. I'm sorry, Mr. Asa. So under the project, the second paragraph, it says enrollment projection MP, and then down again, you'll see the same sentence under enrollment and capacity data. 2 times.
Yeah, previously it said SLAM.
It said SLAM both times.
Don't worry, I'm used to all your colors, so I just. This is colorless. All good.
Always bring more color, Mr. Asa, if you want. All right, page 27. Second one, last bullet point box, is the analog clocks change. And I presume someone else made up this language. That's it. Those are the only edits.
I just want to thank the Facilities Committee for their work on this. I made the mistake of listening to several of your meetings and the amount of headway that you made for us. I just want to give my appreciation. This is nuanced work and I'm excited to have it in front of our other town bodies. So thank you for all the work.
Anyone else?
I'll just say a comment then. I just want to thank Mr. Papa George and Mr. Donnie and Mr. Hanson, who was just such a pleasure to work with, I have to say, in updating our ed specs from the last 25 years or so that we've been using, modernizing it and hearing some fresh eyes and perspectives about what's going out there in Connecticut. As we move forward, not only for this, but just our schools in general. And also just all the administrators, I really want to thank. They took time out of their day and I never asked, but I appreciate that they came. And Mr. Mancusi and his team lending a lot of insight. So really group effort here. And to my colleagues on the committee, we had plenty of healthy debate on some of these items. So just wanted to say thank you to everyone. That's all.
was gonna tell you a funny story. So I was talking to someone yesterday that I'm asked to help with a school security grant that's out. The cops grants are out again. And we have an opportunity to apply. And one of the things that we talked about was our elementary school. And he had told a story that there are some products out there that they're mounted in hallways and they give directions and everything. But one of the feedback that companies have gotten is that the clocks are digital and not analog. And in elementary schools, they want analog. Yes, so I thought you would find that quite comical. So
That makes him applied.
these companies are trying to integrate analog clocks in their products for safety and security.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So I thought it was just here, but it's
It's a thing.
nationwide, yes.
Wow.
Mr. Asa?
Thank you to the committee and everybody for this work, and the administration. I'm assuming that the administration endorses this at this point to move forward.
Yeah, can we vote on it, please?
Well, not yet. I do have
Before
to.
somebody takes another toilet or a sink out.
And just one more thing, I apologize, I've been somewhat removed the last 2 weeks. Where are we? I know you said there's a meeting of the working group tomorrow. Do we have any updates on the whole drilling and boring and all of that
Well,
stuff?
the boring was scheduled for the last week of the month. So no, the sites have been toured multiple times by the Spigal's consultant. But no actual digging has commenced anywhere, but it's on the calendar.
Okay, and so basically our doing this is handing this over to them and saying, this is what we want. And then waiting.
This is also saying, we've done the thing that you've asked us to do. And it's ready to go. So I mean, from that standpoint, I'm kind of eager to drop this and say, the board has endorsed this and move forward. What's gonna transpire tomorrow? Frankly, I don't know. I know what I hope to bring to that meeting, which is again, to talk about coming up with a regular schedule of meetings, to ask about the website that's been promised for Dwight, to keep that community informed. Talk about possible rump building committee for other kind of, public content. But also to hear whatever updates that they have and information that they want.
Appreciate it.
I think this is extremely important, that they see what the expectation is from the Board of Education in the district on any project that is done. And that we can't lower the standard beyond this.
Not that this is lowering the standard.
No, I'm saying that they can't lower the standard. The expectation is this. And how they incorporate that in whatever they decide to recommend, whether it's a brand new building or some sort of simulants of a remodel and renovate as new as they've used that in our first kickoff meeting, that this is the standard that the Board of Education expects.
I think they've asked for this from us. I think it should be fulfilling to say, we are done with this. Any questions from the public, comments from the public? That's a comment. Bring it back to the board, all in favor. Vote is unanimous, 8-0. Again, thank you all, Echo. Thanks to the Facilities Committee for hours and hours and hours of work, and for Mr. Hanson.
Yes, Mr. Hanson, such a pleasure. Thank you. So patient, wonderful to work with. Thank you.
It was my pleasure to work with all of you, especially the Facilities Committee. You were so diligent. And I hope you are pleased with the final product.
Diligent is Jen's middle name.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll move on to item 7B, approval to delete policy 6142.2, reading language arts, with the recommended motion. The Board of Education approved to delete policy 6142.2, reading language arts. Moved by Maxon Canelli, seconded by Mr. Asa. Questions or comments from the board? I feel like we've been over this, but obviously this is a topic it's strongly about. Add anything?
I'm not gonna beat this dead horse. We've talked about this 4 times now. I think it's been before us. I've expressed that I think the language is fabulous. that it's a good standard for this board to hold. So obviously, I'm sure it's not a surprise I won't be supporting this. And had expressed that I think that doing so is a disservice. So that's just my perspective, and appreciate the conversation that's been allowed to ensue by the committee and at the table. Thank you.
Any other questions from comments from board members? Taking out to the public, comments from the public on this item? Back to the board, all in favor? Mr. Lee, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, Mr. Asa, all opposed? Mr. Krasnoff, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Flynn, and Ms. Guernsey?
No, I'm not raising my hand. Actually, yes, I'm gonna raise my hand.
In the middle of the vote?
Question or for?
Yeah, no, I'd like to change my vote.
All right, so you're voting no?
Correct.
Okay, so the no votes are Mr. Krasnoff, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Flynn, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, and Mrs. Guernsey. Do I have that correct?
Mhm.
The measure fails 3-5.
So now I'd like to make a motion to reconsider. And in making that motion to reconsider that vote, I would like to remind the people who just voted against this deletion that no one has given me any information for why. Nothing. We brought it before this board. I asked for input. Thank you, Mrs. Jacobson, who is the only one who gave me any feedback. There is no other subject that gets, except for health, that gets this kind of policy language. This is language that was meant for struggling districts in the state of Connecticut. You will not find this in any of the other districts to whom we compare ourselves and consider them our peers. And so I'm asking for that vote to be reconsidered.
So you're putting the vote on the motion to reconsider on the table?
Yes.
Are you seconding the motion? No. I'm looking for a second for the motion. Mr. Racer, are you seconding the motion? All right. Comments?
I thought I made it pretty clear. I read it differently than maybe other people here, but I felt the language should have stayed, so I didn't have any additional comments to send you. I said it 3 times that we've had it before us. If you wanted it in an email, you should have wrote me and told me you wanted it in an email.
I said it 2 or 3 meetings ago. I asked explicitly as a discussion topic. And Mrs. Guernsey, you were at that meeting and you were in policy and you voted for this to be deleted. And I am hearing nothing from you about why you are now suddenly switching your vote.
Oh, try to do no ad hominem, please.
Sorry, I apologize. I thought we were at the discussion part.
Well, we are, but
We have to vote on the rescinding.
we have to vote on the motion. Any more comments on the motion to reconsider? All in favor of the motion to reconsider? Mr. Lee, Mr. Peterson, Ms. Maxon-Kennelly, Mr. Asa, all opposed. Mr. Krasnoff, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Flynn, and Mrs. Guernsey, motion fails 4-4. Okay. Moving along. Item C, a policy, approval of policy 2140, superintendent of schools with a recommended motion that the Board of Education approve policy 2140, superintendent of schools. Mrs. Jacobson, seconded by Mrs. Flynn. Any comments? Questions on this?
I'll just make a comment. Thank you for making that change to the committee about the condition or material piece of that. So I appreciate that edit to this policy. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments from the public? Back to the board, all in favor? Vote is 8-0 unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 8A, third quarter finish report from Ms. Laborious.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the results. As you will see, and also I want to just personally thank Ms. Jacobson for pointing out that there was a continued error in the report with FTE calculation that we did get to rerun. So showing an error in the, what's called the current modified budgeted FTE. So now I'll look into the results. So at the close of the second quarter, you will find we had a projected shortfall of about $466,000. Through the board support, and through conversations with the exec team, we were able to put some of those funds in reserve, and I'm happy to report that we're now at a positive condition for a positive balance of $68,000. That we do anticipate going into the year end, bringing it down with the balance with the year end transfers. So to go into that, to respond proactively, we have placed funds in a holding account to monitor risks in key areas, which is utilities, transportation, the substitute staffing, health insurance, and also our excess cost reimbursement. Although we received the additional state funding of the 400,000 and change for our capped reimbursement amount of about 1.6 million. What does that mean for special education? Special education, we went from a projected gap of about 800,000 to now a projected gap of about $1 million. And that's part of the condition for the bottom line that we're showing you now. We did also see some more favorability in health insurance. And we also saw additional favorability in utilities, although there is a gap in utilities. So I'll stop there and just say, big picture, we have a gap in special education, a gap in utilities. The utilities is a good story. It could have been a much bigger gap. So in our electric, we've seen a 17% decline in usage, but more than an 18% increase in the results in that netting out of the negative $340,000. And I'll pause there because I see a question through the chair. Is it okay if I address a question? Yeah.
Just on that utility, how much of that's public benefit? Does that weigh into this?
I don't have that. It is net included public benefit, but I don't know what the benefit. I'm going to turn to my colleague, Barry. Devaney, no, I'm not going to put her on the spot.
If you find it, I would love to know, just like if our usage is going way down and our bill is going up, how much of that is the public benefit, just for our knowledge?
So for the Friday packet, I'll work with she's really gotten to know intimately the details of the utility budget, working with Sal. So I put that out in the Friday packet, if that's okay, Mr. Cadmus. Be great. Moving on. So we continue to hold 370,000 in reserve for the final quarter. We want to continue to be conservative because right now what we're showing in your backup, if you look at the summary page that you're used to seeing called summary classification balances as of 5/9/25 year-to-date actual, we're showing a positive 70,000 in personnel, but if you remember, that's like 0.017% of the budget, 100 of the personnel budget. So 170, it's a lot, but it's also personnel. So as we get closer to year end and we tie those final balances, if you recall, we have additional obligations against the personnel budget that include part-time returns from FMLA, because we just from FMLA. They may not, slated to return. So for those reasons, we still hold aside that small $170,000 remaining in that personnel line. If we move on to the maintenance operations and transportation, you're seeing that negative 222 balance variance against the budget. That's because, again, as utilities, we get the final utilities bills. It's been a mild winter, it's been, knock on wood, relatively mild May and June. So that might increase a little bit additional variability in positive place for Q4. And that said, we're still just showing the negative 222 and not doing the final balance because we're holding it into the code so that we don't have to do multiple things to where we need to be. We do feel really confident about that number. You'll also notice that on line 43, we did transfer back an additional 155,000 to the maintenance line so that we could fund some of those critical things that net, that means the transfers that are needed currently into the maintenance accounts, which is the major category 2, is about 200. Again, that's net of the needs across the board, but includes Capital outlay, we're on target to spend our full capital budget this year. And if there is additional, I don't want to call it spend out because it was a pause in spending on certain things at year end to afford some risks that we had and were continuing on. But that unpause will result in Q4, which Mike are gonna work on before I go, to get that list of things that the board's familiar with. For example, if there's any capital funding in IT, for example, if there's any pre-buying, not pre-buying, but against the maintenance waterfall, for example, like you used to do at the next board meeting through the chair when he wants to bring it to your attention. I'm gonna stop there because I've gone through a lot and I just wanted to check in and see if there are any questions.
Mrs. Finn?
Thank you, Courtney.
Sure.
So just under those proposed transfers, that school expenses line where it says adjustments and the -168 to align with instructional and operation spending patterns, can you speak a little bit to that and what you guys have seen and how that hits that number?
Yeah, I'm missing a page. What is it? I apologize. Okay, here it is. Okay, so I did skip over that. I apologize. So, yes, okay, school expenses. One next 78.
Yeah, the 168 015. Can you just talk about where that comes from, like, or through the chair to?
That's in the memo.
Yeah, it's in the memo. So in the memo on the second page, it's the 4th bullet down on page 3. Take your question.
Transfer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, can you just speak about what those findings were and where that comes from?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so if you go to the summary by major classification report, if you look on line 21 and 26, you can see that to balance the budget, we took out 178 school accounts and added about $10,000 to the instructional supplies and copier. So that nets out to the -168. And that represents about 7% on the school side of their budget. We did that because typically at this time of year, meaning usually it's right before spring break, a little bit later. They still have, FPS still has 244K encumbered from recent purchase orders that came in the last few months that still aren't paid out. And there's still another $140,000 left of unobligated funds. So we can talk to the schools. We've had a few people come back and say, oh, I still needed a little more, and we're transferring it back to them.
Okay.
But because of that, that's where we are this year, because we did do that mini pause.
Yep.
And they did pause on some critical items 2 months ago. We do have enough money to close out the year, we believe.
So like you said, you spoke about this in finance committee and you spoke to it a little bit before, things were paused, things are reopening. Could it be that buildings maybe are looking at their spending, but everyone that needs everything is now in a position where they can encumber what they need before the end of this fiscal?
That's correct. They should have plenty, and where they didn't, the principals have reached out to us and said, we didn't account for this one thing. And we've transferred the money back to them, we've gotten it in place, and it's moving through the process. So in Q4, that number might go down to -158.
Okay.
148, because we're still finalizing the needs for the year end, but it's minimal.
And just through the chair to Mr. Chistani, in that alignment with instructional operations spending, did you find anything that was ongoing that was a change in practice or savings, or was it just kind of like a hodgepodge across the buildings that added up to that number?
Yeah, it was different.
Just all across buildings?
Yeah.
But nothing like of substance that you?
No.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, it's like a little percent every.
Yeah, I'm sure it adds up.
When normally they spend that out by buying things that
Yeah.
they still need, but like, it was a little bit everywhere, so.
At this point, if you didn't need it at this point, it's not gonna impact your instructional program, then that could wait till next year and you start the year.
Great, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
We are about to open up next year also, this week for next year process, as well before our clerks leave for the year.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a follow-up. I know we talked about printers and classrooms changing for next year. Has any of that been implemented now? And if so, is that affecting any copies? No, it hasn't been implemented. Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson?
All right, bear with me. Thank you. I got this at 4:00 and it doesn't align to what we got last week, generally speaking. So I'm gonna do my best with the time that I had to go over the new report, and I'll go by page number. So on page 9 of 68, Under the salaries, you have 136 stipends, and the one we got the other day, this is an unbudgeted item. It was called vacation payout. So can you put that as no, the new item?
So the report that you got last week is the crystal is broken, so the crystal.
No, but it's on this, I'm using your new one.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so I don't have the 1 of 68, I apologize, so, can you just let me know?
9 of 68.
Yeah, I know, I have.
Hey, do you have an extra copy over there?
Oh, you don't have a copy of this actual report? Oh, I'm sorry.
I have the report, but it's not page numbered, but I.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Meg.
I mean, it's not a large amount of money, it's just a new item that wasn't there before, so, and it was labeled as 2 different ways, so.
Okay, so page
And
9.
then stipends above extracurriculars, second to last item under salaries.
Yep. So that is just broken out. It's in the past, we were capturing the stipends in the salary lines, but we are now breaking them out so that we can be transparent and show the stipends. So
Stipends different than extracurricular salaries. That's the difference.
yeah, I don't know, I don't recall exactly which stipends these are. It was something that was it's the special education stipend, so.
Okay, all right, it was new, so, all right, I'm gonna try to go quickly because I have a lot. People, personnel services, same page, item 303. Can you just give me a total sum of what you're expecting, I'm just trying to go over what that $1 million is extras for. I went through the detail and I went back through the budget book, and I believe this is for deaf and hard of hearing support, but also behavior technicians. Is that what this is for?
Yeah, the sum object 303 is a sum of professional services.
It's the professional other that where the bump up came in. And since that's not broken out, I want to know explicitly what that overage was.
What the overage is. So this is just the obligation. This is the encumbrance plus requisitions. This is just what's been encumbered but not paid. When you see the obligations, that's not the additional expenditure.
I was looking at the transfer 1053827.
The $1 million transfer. Yeah.
What's that?
So why are we over by $1 million pupil personnel? So yeah, that's a combo of a lot of things.
But it's not really. It's coming out of one. In the detail page, it's really coming out of professional other.
I can tell you what the professional other expenses
Yeah.
includes. That's all our contracted services, like our contracted speech,
Those are all broken out in the detail.
all of our additional tutoring. It is our behavior techs when we have to get additional support to keep the district. You know, we do a lot of in-district program, as you know, and paras or head trainers, and we need higher level of skill set. We do contract sometimes for behavior technology.
But I mean, it's $1 million.
Yeah,
So
we've been $1 million. That's what we are over in special ed is $1 million. So it's everything that's not the contracts. Everything that's not the tuition contracts.
okay, so then jumping to the tuition line. All right, I'm gonna forget those pages because those don't have the detail in them.
The tuition line, yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the detail though. If I can find it in here. Can you tell me what page the tuition is in the detail in the new report? Because I can tell you what it is in the old report.
Sure. So let's see.
Where it's broken out, 6 to 6, all that.
Set category 3. So starting on page 30, I believe, when it's
30.
31.
Yes, no. Well, the professional, just so that board can see what I was talking about before, on page 31, when you go down to item 301 instructional services, you'll see like OT, they transferred in 139, PT was reduced a little bit, professional consultation was reduced a little bit, And then you'll see that professional experience other where you see that 1032 moved in. So that's the detail that I was talking about.
Oh, yes.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
So that went up by $1 million and resulted in 1.1. Yeah, that went up by $1 million in the professional expense other. So professional expense other includes,
That's all our BTs, like tutoring, a lot of our evals, psychiatry.
Right, so this, Mr. Peterson, just for why I'm bringing some of this up, is that we're having a budget discussion later, and we have budgeted less than this amount for next year in that line. So that's a concern, is my.
that's what they went out bid for, that's where you went out to bid, right? For this.
We went out to bid for CBA contract consultations.
Yeah, there's line item in the budget explaining like each piece that adds up to this. So there were reductions assumed because of the issuance of the new RFP is one example, but for other reasons that change next year.
Yeah, so can you tell me in this, where's the tuition line? Tuition line.
Tuition is section 3, some object 329. So the tuition line is on page 32 at the top.
Thank you. Okay, so can you just walk me through this? Are you saying we're under budget for tuition?
No, this is showing that, because the column that you're looking at is the column that you're looking at is the obligations.
No, I'm looking at the first column is what we appropriated. The second column is the transfers. The third column is the amended budget. The fourth is the expenditures. And the next one is the outstanding.
Yep, the outstanding is because the revenue is not yet in bust. We get our revenues for excess cost in 2 batches. This happens every year. We get one in March and we get the other one in June. We're getting the third one this year of an additional 400,000 from the state, as you're aware. So that million, that's why this report is a report of where we stand as of the current actual financial condition. This report is a report of the projected balances. This is the one that you would look at to know where we project to be. And if you wanted to mirror the two, you would look at the fact that on special ed expenses, we're $1 million shy, net of all of these occurrences. The $1 million that's here, that's showing negative because it's a negative unobligated balance.
You haven't gotten the revenue yet. So that entire 2 million, et cetera, you're gonna get in revenue.
Not 2 million, no. There's $1 million that we're gonna get in revenue.
All right, so he budgeted 9,196 for tuition this year. Is that where we are?
We budgeted for tuition, the tuition projected expense, we budgeted for tuition 9,196. And is at 9,196 minus 29.
Okay, so under budget.
Slightly under budget.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that I wasn't misreading that. Thank you. Okay, the Osborne Hill Assistant Principal, it says in this report that we didn't budget for enough Osborne Hill Assistant Principal, but we did.
What page are you looking at?
Okay, it's in the staff detail, obviously. Sorry, guys, because we got this second report.
Page 22. Page 22 of 16.
Page 22, mine is bottom of 21.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry, bottom of,
It's alphabetical.
okay, yes, bottom of 21. Assistant principal, it goes Walter Fitzgerald, you'll see a blank space for Osborne Hill and Burr, but we did budget. And then you see no dollars in the amended, but we did budget for that.
Wages. Right, yeah, so the only reason, the first column is the current modified budget, the adopted budget, the second column is the current modified budget, the third column is the active, so at the time this report was run, there wasn't somebody actively in that position.
I thought the first column was what we adopted.
That's a 1.
It says 0.
It's on page 22. You go down, it's right below North Stratfield.
Osborne.
So what is
Osborne.
what is the other one for Osborne?
It wasn't higher, dude.
I don't get it.
You see what she's looking at, where it says, there's a line on the bottom of page 21, says assistant principal OH with a zero for budget, but if you look on page 22, assistant principal Osborne, there is.
Yeah, so that's a cleanup that needs to happen.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
She's been there for 2 years.
Alright, so but page 23 are aides. I just wanna have a conversation about the paras. I mean, they call them aides in this report. But, and this also goes to the budget next year. You know, we get asked for certain paras, regular ed, special ed, however it is. But then I read reports like this and the regular ed paras are being pulled and then being put into other places. So I don't know why that adjustment, again, it connects to a conversation that we're gonna have later. But why are we pulling our regular ed paras and moving them to things like community partnership, ECC, other places?
So the report shows where they were budgeted, what the current modified budget is, and where they're actually sitting now.
Yeah, I'm getting the big picture of what this, cause we get a budget. And these are the things that people ask for. And then we say, cool, we're gonna support that. And then it's like everything's moved.
I can say we're not pulling paras to the CPP. I don't know if.
Well, I don't know that's what this math shows.
What's that?
That's what the report shows.
We might reallocate paras every August, like when we go through para allocations, when we meet with all the principals. And the special ed administrators and go over staffing projections and student projections, and then we do our staffing. But we are not pulling regular ed paras to staff the CPP. I can promise you that.
Well, I mean, okay, maybe it's not that. I'm just saying there's pluses and there's minuses. And I'm trying to understand why there's minuses and then pluses.
Could you just give us an example, Jen?
Sure, so like, absolutely. So just take, for example, Mill Hill, we budgeted 3.8 paras, those are regular paras, they're 2.6 now. McKinley, we budgeted 4.4, they're at 3.4. North Stratfield, we were at 3.8, they're at 2.8. Osborne Hill, we budgeted 4.4, they're at 2.8. Riverfield, we budgeted 2.8, they're up a little bit at 3.4, so that's not an example of going down, but those are all the regular paras. And then you go down and you'll see like, community partnership, we budgeted 9, they're at 13. ECC, we budgeted 14, they're at 22. So obviously that is what's happening.
So
Trying to understand.
We every August before the school year starts, we readjust staffing based on the actual number of students that we are going to start with, that we know are gonna be there in 2 or 3 weeks. So we do make adjustments as the summer ends.
I totally understand that things change. There's a 0.20, there's a 0.8, and no one's saying it's fixed. But these are significant changes, and all I'm saying from a budgetary standpoint of, if we need to move the FTE, then we should move the FTE. And not say we're gonna put regular ed paras in our elementary schools and then not do that. That's my concern on that.
Yeah, so if you look at the budget this year, there were some shifts. So when you look at the budget to current modified for the current year, it's a little different. When you start the year with the projected enrollment where there's less kindergartens, for example, they take away kindergarten paras on the October 1 enrollment. This year, there was a shift in the building paras, Mike, that were reallocated to special education. That's the only.
So for example, Mill Hill, Jennings decided to have 2 less pairs and one, as we talked, 1 extra teacher. So those are the
full-time ECC classes.
And then we opened the ECC over at Holland Hill, which increased ECC their allocation over there.
Sure. I guess through the chair to Mr. Stani, these shifts are, I think, a part of staffing this world and the buildings that we're currently running. Are you seeing a trend that you need to adjust to ensure that our, younger friends that we're trying to give support through our kindergarten paras are supported, and that we're properly staffing for all of our programmatics in our elementary schools. Is that, like, is that a trend you're wanting to follow, that you wanna use more teachers versus paras in our programmatics? I just think we're gonna have to have that conversation.
It all depends. It depends on the program. It depends on what the needs are, there's principal at Mill Hill, she requested, we lost a teacher, that we go back to 2 teachers and add the additional paras, simply
because
it's hard to keep the teachers.
So it might be something.
We're responding in real time. It's hard to say when you're building the budget in November for the following year, what the needs are gonna be in every particular building. Based on individual IEPs, based on enrollment, we project that we're gonna have CLCs with 10 kids, say, in each. And now we only have 7 in one classroom for whatever reason. Maybe a kid goes out, kids move, so then we lower the allocation of para by 1.
I would just add, if I could.
Those are special ed paras. I'm talking about the regular ed paras.
Well, unless there's sections changing, we haven't reduced any regular ed paras. I don't know if they're maybe not coded in Munis. And that has to be cleaned up, but
Okay.
we started with the same amount of paras. I mean, we didn't reduce paras in the day.
I'm just talking about the allocation.
Is that something we can get a more detailed follow-up?
And can I add, so this is the first time usually when we present the quarterly, we look at that high level report. So if we seem a little bit like off put, or if I do, it's partially because I haven't answered questions to the detail before. So if you just bear with me. That said, this is consistently the detail throughout the year. That's why we have the process. We have we have an adopted budget. The budget is locked for the head count. There was an error on the report and this time. This is the corrected report. If you're interested in watching those changes, this is regularly published to you every quarter. So if you want to ask those questions at any point in time during the year, so we can explain it in real time, we're happy to. But it does line up with the budget, so I'm just saying that the adopted budget is what the board adopted. The current modified budget is the authorized headcount right now, so any changes that happen within a given year are those enrollment changes. The actuals are the actuals, and the report is reported out to the board every quarter. So we're happy to provide additional detail so that we can explain any changes that happen, but this is the consistent report that's shared with the board throughout the year. And that's utilized to build, like Mr. Testani said, the budget for the next year, which is November. At that point in time, we do use what we call the current modified budget. So that is reflective of any changes that happened as of November. And I believe we have transparency with the board throughout the board process as to if there's any additional changes to that current modified budget, that we bring those to the board.
Thank you. I just want to, the next page 25. The custodians at the elementary schools, pretty much all of them were budgeted for 1.5 and they're down to 1.0. However, next year's budget, the request was still to have the 1.5s. This is 5 FTE. At the elementary level, that I'm not sure why that wasn't on the adjustment list, if we're not actually keeping the custodians that we put in the budget. So again, I'm just pointing out the discrepancy.
Say that again, I apologize.
Can I piggyback on this? I think this might be a follow-up for Angelus, because I had a similar question on this, and I believe there were some changes made.
We're working with the union to try to negotiate something on some of the split positions to give us a little more flexibility, because we were having trouble filling some of the splits.
Okay, so I guess it's just a matter of, but we put the 1.5s in for next year, and if
right.
we don't need them, then.
Well, we're gonna need them because we haven't solidified with the union yet right now, because we're heading into contract negotiations. They'd rather take up that discussion, so.
It's just where they'll be landed. But
Correct.
we need the total FTE.
Correct, exactly, and how we're gonna be able to.
I'd be interested in that too.
Okay.
So yeah, the need is there, it's just how they're gonna be allocated, and if they're gonna give us the opportunity in negotiations to make some changes to address the splits. And help.
AM, PM, is that what you're talking about?
So somebody shows up at Osborne Hill at 3 o'clock, they help with the end, and then they go somewhere else for the second part. Like here, we get Michelle's here for the second part of her shift, the first part of her shift's at Holland Hill.
Facility.
Correct. So we're trying to be a little creative to better serve, because a lot of folks don't like the splits. I mean, we were having some trouble, so we had a proposal that they rejected now, but like to take it up as part of contract negotiations.
Okay.
But the need is there.
I won't get into some other things because I'll save that for our budget discussions. If we could go to the. Again. The budget reserves on page 40. The bottom of page 40, the budget reserves and the budget school reserves, those are two new items in this third quarter report, as Mrs. Laborious mentioned. So what we got last week, that first one, Mrs. Laborious, the budget reserves for 7773 is exactly matching what we got last week, but the 370,722 was more like $1.2 million versus this 370. So what happened there? Do you know?
Point in time, so this report was run more recently, so we did sweep back 1.2 million, as we mentioned earlier, we were holding those funds. But when we saw additional favorability, we transferred those monies back. As of, I think it's 5/9, when this report was run, there's still 370 sitting in the holding company now.
Between Friday and today, you moved $1 million?
Well, we just completed the transfers, yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Not $1 million, but like $800,000 or $900,000.
Okay, and then what were those being held from? What accounts?
Various across the board.
Supplies?
No, it was like instructional, a little bit of some maintenance money. It was across the board.
I'm gonna go to the revenue account if you don't mind. So where are you accounting for this right now for the, what are we getting, $474,000 in excess cost? Is that anywhere in here yet?
In where? What do you look at the?
Any report, meaning is that going to help with overage? It must obviously help, but.
No, it's currently
It's not accounted for yet in this report.
It is accounted for, so wait, I'll answer the question. So in the report that shows, that we normally use, that shows the projected year end, it's accounted for in the projected total additional expense. So that negative 721 is net of the additional.
All right. Well, that's good. What was it, 474? 465?
I think it was I think it's 4.0.
Okay. Excess costs I already answered. So I'm on the blue, the grant items. Did we get less magnet transportation than we thought we were gonna get? And that's on, can't help you guys, it's the second page. We were looking at 32.5, but I'm not sure if I'm only seeing like 19 something. Unless some of these we just haven't gotten the second tranche yet.
We just haven't gotten the next bit.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
The ARPA mental health items, are we still banking on that? For right, I mean, it's been frozen, unfrozen, yada, yada.
We got every ARPA dollar that we were.
You already are in possession, so you don't need to worry about the freeze. Okay, that's good. Other item for revenue. Let's do the Chromebook damages right now. And I think that was it. That was it. Thanks. I just. All right, thank you. Sorry, lots of questions.
As previously stipulated, diligent is your middle name. Questions, comments on financial update? Nicholson, is there anything that you want more detail or to follow up on perhaps in the Friday packet?
I mean, I guess when we get to the next conversation, there's a lot of items I didn't even bring up, like the extra clerical support, the TA subs, the conference and travel. With healthy balances at this point, So if those aren't, I just don't know, those are not huge buckets of money, but I would like to know, like, are those areas that we could be looking at? Because they're small buckets, but if we're not spending the money and we're just transferring out to other lines, that could be an area. I'd like to know what's going on with the custodians, for sure, and the paras.
Just repeat the clerical subs, you said two.
Clerical extra, I think they're called clerical extra. It just looks like we're not spending those dollars. Subs, something called subs TA. I don't know, that's like some different category, the custodians and the paras.
On the clericals, I do believe it's because there's additional balance, we don't encumber those monies, they get spent out if they.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they just have all those kind of areas have healthy balances in them. So what I'm saying, over budgeted is my point, possibly.
Yeah, we did reduce those for next year, but what I'll do is I'll do a comparison of this year's budget to next year's budget and send that out in the Friday packet so we can make sure that it's appropriate for next year.
Thanks for that. If I'm not mistaken, we're gonna be before the Board of Finance, next Tuesday?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to item 8B, initial discussion of superintendent's recommended 25-26 budget adjustments. I'll go over this.
So as we know, the budget was approved. We still had about $950,000 to reduce in order to come on budget. Feel the recommended reductions here in the areas that I've identified that we can close that gap and move forward next year without having to reduce any further staffing. So as mentioned, we did go out to RFP. We had budgeted for savings of $150,000 when we originally did the budget. We were estimating that's where it would land. We've realized an additional $150,000 in savings in the final contract with Beacon. So there's where the $150,000 there that of savings that I'm projecting here. I believe we, without any major contracts next year and some adjustments in with oversight, that we can reduce legal services by $100,000. I think that puts us with any exposure as we move forward. We are looking at reducing daily subs, and I think we can control some of the spending with substitutes based on how much we're pulling teachers during the school day for professional development. We're gonna look to do a little bit better in how much time we're taking staff out of classrooms during the school day. I think a lot of that was due to how much work had to be done with literacy. Now that that's completed, and we've also I've met with our representative, Mark Donald from Catalyst, to see how much we can save by reducing the number of days in our restorative practices training. I think after 2 years, some tweaking can be done, and he's working out some of the details that we can hit all the major components of the training. Right now, they've got it down to about a day and a half. Even though we're pulling people for 2 days, some of the feedback was some of the storytelling could be reduced where we can get it all the major points in 1 day. So they've taken that feedback, so that'll save some money. So we feel confident that the $100,000 can be achieved.
Mr. Testani, sorry, quick question. Could you explain what Catalyst is?
Catalyst is the old Riot app.
Oh.
Yeah, they've come under a new name now. Don't know why. And
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wasn't familiar with it.
But, you know, great partner they've been. They're actually helping us with some grant writing from some folks out of Rutgers University on trying to secure this COPS grant at no charge. So we had an initial meeting with the Rutgers folks today, and they're gonna help us craft. They have some experience in getting COPS grants across the Northeast. So we can secure, hopefully the most we can apply for is $500,000. There's a 25% match. can get some serious work done that we'd like to expand at some of our schools, especially our elementary schools. Health insurance, given where we landed this year, we feel comfortable in that we'll achieve at least $250,000 in additional savings, especially since we're not having much attrition this year. I think we're at 19 total retirees. Pulled back, and we had an additional, so we're back at 19. And it looks like retention wise, we're doing really well with our current staff, so we're comfortable with that number. We're reducing the 7th year or just salary lane change. We categorize it as 7th year. That's masters to 6th, bachelor's to masters, and then 6th to 7th year. Not everyone, we believe, is going to achieve their completion by the start of the school year. So $100,000 there is a good number. I don't think we want to go much higher there. That's achievable. We have some ideas with transportation, and we're in the final stages working out the final contract between the town, our transportation department, and First Student. So we're comfortable in taking $100,000 reduction there. In personnel, I think through attrition and through some strategic moves, we've realized that -2 is not a number. You don't have to look at that. We're not reducing 2 more staff members, just through attrition and other. I believe that $150,000 in additional savings can be achieved. With the nursing contract, we are going to save after meeting with Sarah Payne, our new nursing supervisor. She has given us an opportunity where we can replace with para educators on transportation on buses for related care, rather than paying extra for LPNs and RNs. We had a follow-up meeting, Rob and I, with her on Friday, Rob. And that is something that we put in motion. And then obviously we have to realize the bonding that's being done for the projects that we anticipated, that went through all boards, and is now going to go out here. So right there, I believe that covers the almost $1.9 million.
For questions, Mr. Jersey.
I just have a question about the personnel change, the 2.0 FTE you said would be like attrition. Don't think about it as people, that kind of.
Well, no, that number shouldn't be there at all. We're not losing 2 other people.
Because what I was wondering, can you sort of talk about how that number sits with the 0.6 reduction that we are?
Still the 0.6. Yeah, this is an additional. I don't know.
So
that's an error. That should come up.
No, that's fine. So with the 0.6, I mean, with the 6.0 reduction, do you have a better sense of who it is that we're losing? Because you said that some of that might be attrition. Do we know now?
Yes, so we have more solid numbers there. So we have a math position at one of the high schools that with a retiree, there's not a need to replace that individual based on the number of sections after the build. We have 1.2 in not needed in PE health. We have the reduction based on class sizes of a reading teacher at one of the high schools that will that has K6 certification and will fill a vacancy at K6. The PE health folks, because of retirement, we're not losing anyone there as well. We have we had an overage of a school counselor that because of retirement, we don't have to fill. We had an overage at Fairfield School. So we had a retiree there, which bumped that person, the overage into that position. And then we are covering the other 0.5 overage with another staff member that's going to be split between 2 buildings. Walter Fitzgerald possibly, and Fairfield Woods.
Okay.
Were there.
So does that equal 6 then? I don't know, I could.
No, we have the reading. We had a overage in one of the buildings with library media specialist who holds another certification, who's gonna be into another building. And
We cut 6, so you're talking about reallocation. We're looking for 6 cut.
reallocation, they're not being backfilled in
So
the.
you're not hiring a new person.
Correct. So 6 positions are gone.
No one's losing their job.
No one is losing their job, correct. Because we had vacancies and some folks had multiple certifications, so they were able to.
Thank you.
And then we had some retirements where we were able, we lost some folks during the course of the year where they were experienced top step teachers that have retired or left. And we were able to plug in and offer jobs, and they were accepted for the teacher residence from Sacred Heart. So that's where a lot of the differentials come. So $116,000 to $58,000. And most of those had help. That's why with the health insurance, we're comfortable as well, given the fact most of those were family plans and these are singles. So.
Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you. For number 6, that transportation piece, that $100,000, that's inclusive of the parking permit that was discussed at finance. Is that also inclusive of the other ideas that you discussed, the route changes and things? Maybe you could just talk to that a little bit.
So we're looking at every student at the 2 high schools. We're working follow up with Dr. Hassett and Mr. Cavanna regarding anyone who receives a parking pass will have to opt out for bus. So if they're not going to utilize the parking pass full time, then they're not going to be eligible to receive the parking pass. Or if they are going to use it part time and not take the bus and get a ride the other days, that's fine. We're also looking at, as we saw in the ridership in elementary and high school, to over-assign a certain percentage of students on those buses to ensure that there's full ridership or close to full ridership. I don't know if we'll ever get full ridership. And then having the transportation consultant, they are going to work and help with some of our routing as well to make sure we're more efficient.
So is this $100K inclusive of that I don't wanna mislabel what you, assigning, is that inclusive of that?
Yes, now it could be higher, but we won't know
You wanted to be
until.
conservative. You didn't include it on here. I just thought it was important for the full board.
Wanted to be where we know we can achieve.
Okay.
If it's a little bit higher, that's great. I'm also anticipating we're gonna have some issues next year with utilities now that we're gonna have 3 more buildings online with air conditioning.
Ms. Jacobson.
Thank you. The behavioral RFP savings 150, we also cut the exact same number on January 28th.
Yep.
So it's another 150.
Correct.
Does that include the behavior technicians? Is that bucket, it's a different bucket?
Yes.
Given how over we are in special ed right now, I'm a little hesitant to go into that area. Legal services, I don't have anything.
Just to piggyback on that, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is directly related to a contract that we've negotiated, correct?
Yes.
So the number on the contract is what we should budget for. So I understand your overage, but we also have to be careful not to pad a contracted number.
But some of those things are already.
Just.
Okay. One way or another, I think we should be allocating more money to SPED in this process than what is already actually in this budget. The reduction in staff 250, you just said that's a savings from those 6 changes. That's not anything new.
250 is health insurance.
Because sorry, the staff, whatever one that is. Where's that one?
Personnel.
The 150.
Yep.
All right, we cut a lot of health insurance on January 28th, so this is additional. I mean, we have like $995,000 less in health insurance this year, so is there a reason why we can't cut more? Sorry, anybody?
Well, I mean, I know in finance committee, you talked about this number being fairly conservative.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying not to give us too much exposure. I mean.
Well, it's $1 million less this
Well,
year.
But if we do have additional next year,
You're cutting staff. We're cutting a lot of staff. I don't know how it would go up.
6 staff, we're not cutting a lot of staff.
Well, you already, okay.
But what I'm saying is I think if we do have more than that next year, then we use it for, if we need it in special education, it's there.
If you look at the year over year increase, I think the rate goes up by 11, but our budget goes up by something like not like almost 10. So the 1% difference is partially adjusting for the anticipation of lower usage. And if you go back, I think there's a Board of Finance document that we provided that showed like a 7-year look back on the trend of enrollment in health insurance. And what we're seeing this year and projecting for next year is a higher, for some reason that we don't exactly know why, single rather than family enrollment. So there's just a swing, single and single plus one away from family. So we had traditionally budgeted for more on the family side. So it could be a risk to cut the health insurance budget further, given all of the other things you're watching, but I understand that's the question, rather than cutting special ed, right, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we're having a, initial conversation. Let's talk about the 7th year lane.
Well, the lanes advancement altogether, that's all lanes.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
$2 million.
Yeah, the additional 1/7.
Out of all of that $2 million, you only, when you did your reach out and due diligence to find out who was that, only $100,000?
Did more than due diligence, trust me.
No, I know you did. I'm just saying that's all that came back. Okay.
For next year, I think we're not gonna see a big increase at all. I think we may get, it's not back to normal, we may get a little bit less than normal, because you would see the requests for course approvals coming in, and they've come in drips and drabs now for people going back to school for next year. I think the following year you may see a little bit more, but I think the bubble burst in year 1 is. So,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, so I have 2 more things. The substitutes, we're running, we've heard all year long on how many people are going out on FMLA and how we're running on, shortages of substitutes and needing to hire more. I would be hesitant to cut anything, if not add more to substitutes in our adjustments. I let Mr. Peterson know, and well, not the details because you were away, but, an unfunded mandate has come, it's moved through the process that would cost us $250,000 and to $500,000 in needed coverage. So just letting the board know it's halfway through, it's gone through the Senate, which, obviously we won't know until June 4th, obviously. But what it is extending FMLA to non-certs. So what would happen is we worked together. I worked with the administration to get an estimate. We submitted testimony, but it's moving forward. I mean, obviously, I don't know at this point. My point is, I want to add substitutes at this point, especially if that moves forward versus.
But the non-certs, we wouldn't give subs for.
The non-certs, well.
Our subs are for teacher substitutes.
No, but there's other categories. I mean, you were on the email with.
No, I know, but we wouldn't provide subs for those folks. That's where we would reallocate where we can.
Yeah, this is one of the areas I want to get more information on. I'd also like to know from Dr. Parrish, I'm not sure if we get class cancellation reports, if the district central office collects that information from our high schools, like how many classes are canceled in a year, any particular areas. I mean, obviously I know classes get canceled.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know how many of those, if possible, are getting canceled as well.
Well, if they're getting canceled, it's not because of a lack of subs. It's just, I mean, we have over an 80% fill rate.
No, they do get canceled because of a lack of subs.
What I'm saying.
Those of us with high school kids know.
Oh, what I'm saying is, it's not because there's a lack of trying. It's some people don't want to sub in the high schools.
Right.
But we're at an 80%, over 80% sub rate to increase the line. That's not gonna get us more coverage.
Transportation, Mr. Peterson. I was told that Finance Committee was doing all the big lift on transportation. So what has your committee brought to us in terms of a $12.1 million contract? $100,000, when we know a huge amount of waste is happening every day. I thought that we were gonna be having like a real conversation on transportation. $100,000, I mean, how, first of all, I know you guys have talked about this in finance, I presume, but how much is the 5-year contract?
Well, we don't have a final.
No, we don't have a final number yet. There's still,
What's going on with this contract?
we're waiting on the town as well. There's,
Is it out the town?
yeah, and there's a meeting next week between all the parties involved. There was an email, there was some delay in one of the parties coming to the table, just in schedule.
So in that contract, there must be a 5-year total on that.
There's a 5-year, there's a percentage increase year over year, correct?
Okay. This is probably not the night. But let's be real. $100,000 is not what I'm looking for. We are flushing millions of dollars down the toilet while we're talking about cutting more staff and substitutes. I don't understand. This has been a conversation that we have had for years. We haven't been in a position where we've kind of been nudged to have to talk about it. It's not a difficult conversation for me to have. It's a facts are facts. Are we going to continue to just literally flush money down the toilet every single day? Or do we want to actually have a real conversation about this and maybe be able to do things with our district with $2-3 extra million a year? That's the real conversation.
Can I ask a question? What is flushing millions of dollars?
So what that means,
Very dangerous.
okay, so what I'm gonna say is this. Okay, I'll take that back. That's my term of the non-use of bus service equates to that amount of money, 30% of this contract. And that's generous.
I don't have the floor.
Can I get clarity?
Well, that's what it is.
It's not.
What do you mean that's not what, that's what we were literally given that information.
But it's not as simple as yes, this board, I think, wants to talk about ways to improve that. But and if we do, it doesn't, whether the contract is, if we run less buses, we're not gonna pay what the contract is. So we can do those savings, but I just think you have to caution yourself when you say flushing millions of dollars down the toilet.
I look at it that way. I don't need to caution myself.
From a finance committee standpoint, I will say we were talking about a lot of different potential scenarios. Modeling things out was somewhat more difficult. We were talking about some specific areas where a possible increase in radius would generate savings. We talked about the possible offsets from increasing the radius, but putting money into additional crossing guards and trying to have that conversation, which I think is kind of a promising way to go. Do you want to?
I'm happy to add too. Just from hearing, I was able to go to I think a lot of committees have been carrying this bus ridership issue over the years. I think facilities has, I think it got kicked around. I came to the policy committee meeting because I thought that input for the parent community was really important. And while I agree that we don't want to see under usage of our buses, I also don't want to hit this with a stick, if that's the right way to say it. And for me as a member of the finance committee, we don't have the details of the contract. I look forward to those, but hearing that we could utilize strategies like over enrolling buses to get that usage up without taking away the opportunity from parents or our community. I'm just saying, for me as a member of that committee, that sounded appealing to bring to the full board.
So
that's just our
this piece of paper is $100,000. I'm looking for a lot more than that.
I understand, but that's a longer term conversation. It's going to involve the full board in some of these discussions about how we prioritize.
Well, I asked to have that conversation and you told me that, I was told that finance committee was doing the work.
We are in the process of talking about it, yes.
But we have to make adjustments. So I guess my follow-up on this is I would like to know what the 5-year cost is, because at the end of the day, if we're adding $6 million over 5 years, we're not getting anything more. I'm just throwing that number out there. We have other contracts for next year. Like, at some point, we're pouring money into something that we know we can be more efficient about at the expense of doing other things for kids. So if anything, I'd rather get serious around the bus issue than start taking away things from kids in their classrooms. So, that's where I'm at. I'm not done yet. We also don't know where we're at with this number, because there could be a lot more revenue coming to us possibly. So I appreciate this conversation right now, but we don't really know where we're actually at in terms of.
On this exact point, we talked about this in leadership, and Mrs. Flynn had the excellent idea that there's no requirement. In past, we have put this on at more or less this meeting as a first read and voted on adjustments at the next meeting. We haven't done it every year, but the years that we have, that's usually been the pattern, but there's no requirement for us to do that. And with a lot of moving parts still at the state level, it was decided to put this down as an initial discussion, wait to see what develops at the state level and how it may impact these numbers.
If we get $500,000 more in ECS, right there, we only need to go down to 500. Right?
Exactly.
Right, which is probably what's gonna happen, so.
And the thought process behind that in finance and also in leadership was saying, these are a few, and I'm not saying these are gonna hit the numbers that you are looking for, Ms. Jacobson, but these are several strategies, which I haven't seen before. So if we don't have to, impact, I'm gonna say it, I don't wanna impact families if we don't have to. If we can find other ways to do it. Like I said, I'm a walker. I appreciate Mr. Ace's comments at the policy committee. There are lots of families that deal with this, but we heard wholeheartedly, outside of technology, I can't think of a topic we heard from our community. I think it's important for us to take that feedback and try and look at this holistically. So that was my perspective, just so for the full board to have.
That's fine. My perspective is I wanna cut lots of money from buses. That's my perspective.
I think here's where we have to be careful, because the low ridership is at the high school level, super low ridership.
Yes.
Right, but removing the ridership, getting them to opt out, for example, only reduces one of the tiers. It doesn't get the bus off the road.
It's also not only at the high schools, there are elementary schools.
Well, there are elementaries.
The middle schools, I will give you, are very high, they're 80+% on any given day. But
That's
we
where
have
the,
some elementary schools that are 40%,
well, then,
so
right. But is the walking distance gonna do it?
I don't know if it's walking distance or you're just collapsing and putting more kids on it, but
Well, that's what we said we would
Yeah,
do.
but
But I
that's
don't know what that's gonna look like, and I don't wanna say it's $500,000. It may be $500,000. But I don't wanna say $500,000, and then if it's only $250,000, then why'd you say $500,000? That would be the question. So this is a conservative reduction recommendation that we don't lose anything. The 6 staff members or the 6 positions would be cut anyway. We just talked about it earlier with class sizes. We didn't reduce anything that has impact on any programming. They should have been cut regardless. And what you can reinstate the positions there, we don't need them, so why would we bring another math teacher on that is not gonna have courses to teach? Or have an extra person an extra PE health teacher?
I don't think we have enough money in sped, and we should adjust that budget.
Well, again, I think then we wait to see what excess cost is gonna look like. That may bring us more money in sped, and I think that we're good this year. We didn't go over budget this year.
$1 million over budget.
Sped's $1 million, but we have money other places that is cover sped. I think we should be more concerned about utilities.
Ms. Jacobson, are you done with your, Mr. Krasnoff?
So I appreciate the brainstorming. I think this is a really good start, and I actually do appreciate us getting something to just look at, put eyes to. I do have 2 concerns that I was gonna bring up during the quarterly, but I figured it was better now because I think there are things that the board need to be mindful that are coming in very short, long of goals we need to keep an eye on. One being utilities, it's already been brought up. I have serious concerns with all the new stuff coming online, what it's gonna look like come next year. But in addition, I do have concerns about our rental budget or our rental income budget. We projected for 241,000 approximately, where not even at half of that, or actually, sorry, 220, and we're at just under 50, which is a deficit of 171,000 approximately, according to this.
That can't be accurate.
And my fear is next year we had an increase, we only have a few months left, so I just, one, want to get accuracy on it if we can. And two, come up with a plan of what we're doing wrong and that we need to fix, because we had much more rental income coming in previous years. Or two, where it's getting lost in the shuffle. I don't want to be short $200,000 next year. That's.
Mr. Testani, we've talked about this extensively in finance committee. We don't have a lot of space vacancies. All of our spaces are getting rented.
Yeah, well, I mean, wherever there's space to rent, it's being rented, but we're not down that much, not even. It's probably, if not the same, plus or minus a couple. I don't know why it's
real short.
Yeah, I don't know why
including the custodian spend, which makes sense if you're not, doing it, but like I said.
I'm not sure if, cause I know Angelus uses that money to cover overtime costs. So maybe that money's already been expended through the overtime costs and that's what's left. Not sure why it's being reported that way, but I'll get you a number of what we've collected in rentals since July 1.
That would be great.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify something through Chair to Mr. Testani. The substitutes, what you said, we're not cutting and not saying we need substitutes. What we're saying is when these teachers go off to offsite in the middle of the day for a training or something, we're gonna better utilize that scheduling where you don't need a sub to come in and.
Well, we increased the sub budget by 400,000 in next year's budget from this year's already. So instead of a $400,000 increase, it would be a $300,000 increase. So it's not that we cut it from the current budget. It's cut from already a $400,000 ad.
Yeah, so I think, I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect between my understanding of what finance committee is doing and what the finance committee is doing. So in policy, when we push transportation and community facilities, which is the revenue item, over to finance committee, it was my expectation that there would be work done that was more specific than the work we did. So, for example, we spoke about in policy exactly what you've done here, but I don't see like any number, I don't see any backup information that shows the work that was done around what Ms. Jacobson was getting at. I'm not suggesting that any of us want to make people walk farther than they want to, but we don't even have it as an option. I thought that's what we were asking for, was to do this work. So I just, like, I don't understand, like what happened with the revenue conversation. You decided, oh, the buildings were full or they were being used, but did we look at the like, is this gonna come back to policy? Did we look at the dollar amounts that we were charging for them to increase the revenue? Like it was like a larger conversation than that, and I thought we were gonna see that, maybe not in here, but in an addendum that's related to this conversation. So what am I missing?
Well, I mean, specifically on the facility usage discussion, we did talk about this at our April finance committee meeting. Because Ms. Maxon Kelly had forwarded us the request. And as I told her, we discussed both the policy language. So there was a question about how frequently the finance committee would want to evaluate facility usage, and we decided maybe 2 times a year would be a reasonable amount. But then also Mr. Testani was talking about raising the prices for both the Fairfield for-profit and non-Fairfield lanes by $25 per hour, I believe.
Yep.
And
that's gonna go into effect July 1.
Yeah, and we had no issue with that either.
So is where do we see that here? Is it showing up in our?
I would, you know, and even Angelus is hesitant to utilize that to offset anything because he relies heavily on that revenue to cover overtime costs. And as we negotiate a new contract with the custodians, we're anticipating that overtime costs will increase just by the very nature of salaries going up. So I'd be hesitant to include any of that revenue to be booked as something we're gonna get value for. I think it's just gonna go toward whatever the increase in overtime costs are gonna be based on their salaries going up. I would be hesitant to do anything else. So if the custodians get a raise, that means their hourly rate and their overtime rate's gonna go higher as well.
Mr. President?
I just have a follow-up again. I know in the past, the ADs had concerns about renting the turf fields and some of the fields because of damage to equipment. Have we looked at possibly charging some kind of fee or holding some kind of deposit to prevent that so we can continue to rent or raising the amount of the rental cost? Just because I want to keep.
Well, they're
Honestly, I would love the revenue to keep coming in.
Well, they're renting everything every time slot that's possible. The problem is, for example, we know at Ward, there's one field there. There are a significant number of teams, varsity and sub-varsity. I think at Ludlow High, with the turf finally getting done at some point this summer. But it doesn't leave much room because unless somebody wants to rent the field starting at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, which nobody does, and I believe there is a lights out at a certain point at Board. Get what the time is on that. 9, that's what I thought. There's no way, we need another field with lights, that's ours, because we're not gonna have any, except being able to use the Ludlow Middle School, we're not gonna be able to rent that. That's gonna be all Parks and Rec.
We discussed this at finance as well and had input from the ADs and it's a little bit, but it was made pretty abundantly clear that the inventory of our turf is directly contributing not only to the inability to give time to our community or club sports, but just our own high school athletes, our youth athletic organizations. It is a constant jump. Everyone is trying to figure it out as best they can. And I will say, just for myself as a board member, I have zero interest, less than zero, in continuing to rent to anyone that is making our AD's life more difficult, our team's lives more difficult, or damaging our facilities or anything. I don't think there should be any policy. I think it should be a one and done. You're off of our list. We don't have enough inventory to support that.
That's not what I meant by.
No, but I'm just
I meant
making
more
it clear for the
preventative,
public.
So it doesn't happen in the future, not
Yeah,
people that have.
it's
already-
happening now, and that's why our ADs are not renting to certain organizations.
Shouldn't maybe when we finish the completions of the 3 schools, 4 schools that have air conditioning, wouldn't that open up for more rentals within the schools for summer camps from outside the school outside school areas like the YMCA's and things as such?
They use the schools without air already. They already use it. Air is not a requirement for Parks and Rec camp.
Parks and Rec camp. Maybe
Even
for
private
camps.
The YMCA already.
YMCA uses it and things like that.
I mean, that could possibly happen. They have to request. I mean, we can't.
We run other camps, like there's been like convention camps run at Stratfield and stuff, but it's just, they have to request it.
Yeah, and through you, the chair, the YMCA rented from us this last summer. They were at, I don't remember which building, but they were.
They should be they rent this summer?
A few years ago, they were at Dwight. Same time the summer camp was running at Dwight.
Ms. Mexican.
Yeah, thank you. So a few questions. I actually had a question about the legal services, because that was one which chronically year after year we underfunded. And so we finally funded for what was the perceived need. So I was just wondering, what made you feel comfortable? Because we know we haven't been able to hire for that internal position. Despite your attempting to post it, we haven't been able to get a viable candidate. So what makes you feel comfortable with this 100K decrease?
We've just been monitoring how often we reach out to the attorneys, but without having teacher's contract come up next year or an admin contract. I think that's gonna give us, you know, a little bit of relief on the labor side.
Okay, thank you. And, hold on. For the transportation, I just wanna have one, follow-up, because my understanding from having heard the conversation around transportation is that we are directly addressing the underutilization and the empty bus by the two steps we're taking, by getting students off the bus, opting out. That's going to improve that, and then the over enrollment is going to improve that perception and reality that we are not making efficient use of our buses. I assume that the big question right now is that for the 100, because when you reference this as being conservative, because we really don't know who's taking advantage of that yet.
Correct.
You know, that if a lot of the kids who are, this is gonna be, like, obviously, if this program proves to be successful, it could be much more targeted and we have a much better idea next year.
We need some experience.
Yeah, and I think there was one thing that the transportation consultant that's working on the negotiations, and you know, Angelus isn't here tonight to speak to this, but they had mentioned that there's possibilities if we do some, you know, that they would suggest in the negotiations that they're working on, where we can get small little bonuses back.
Or
You know, you mentioned it to me in passing, and I don't wanna speak to it, but it's not huge, but maybe 1/4% here, 1/4% there on certain things, on certain targets that he thinks that we can, the consultant thinks that for a student, would be amendable.
We need to be careful about what we discuss about the negotiations here in public.
Okay.
Follow-up, can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
How many parking spaces at Ward and Ludlow are there?
Dr. Hatzis, do you wanna give I wrote it down after.
300? So if Ward's the same, it's about 600
They have more.
of 3,000. Okay, just trying to do the math in my head, thank you.
But some of those are gonna be taken by people who aren't even on a bus.
Possibly, yeah, and then the over enrolling, so I think that with the high schools, we can significantly over enroll, as we can see.
Yeah.
A lot higher percent.
75%.
Well, that's what we're saying. I mean, I think we go really high there, and I think we have to, middle school, I don't think we can do anything at all. And then at the elementary schools, I think we can probably do at least 20 to 25% as well.
Keep in mind ride times.
Well, that's all gonna be part of the routing, but, and also, I think we need to make adjustments, you know, as we see fit after the first few weeks of school.
All right, Mrs. Maxey.
And on the parking pass thing too, I'll just say very quickly that if someone wants to turn their parking pass in, my experience has always been there's a waiting list for people to pick it back up.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then I was hoping for a little bit more color around the personnel. Because when I see the word attrition, to me, that usually means somebody has retired or left the district and we don't replace them. That's my understanding as a teacher of what attrition means, and that would come with an FTE decrease. So that's why I just want
Okay.
the term as you're using it here
So,
explained
as
more.
I'm using it there, Jen Maxon Kennelly retires, she makes $116,000. We know for certain that the replacement is gonna be a first year teacher. That's gonna make $50,000 at least less.
So then I'm unclear, since we've already allocated in the budget for that's essentially the retirement situation, which we ask about every year. How many are we counting on? We are kind of assuming that we're gonna be hiring somebody who's lower down on the steps. How do we come up with 150,000 that we're comfortable with?
Because when we do that in the budget, we've been a little bit conservative. I think now we're realizing the actual. Because we're hiring now. So these folks are in place now. And I also think that we can be a little bit conservative a little more aggressive in saying that, for example, this year we carried some vacancies and custodian vacancies that couldn't hire for months. Couple of them we did hire, and then they were on the job a week, and 30 background or drug test or whatever came back. So those stayed fatal. So I think we need to account for some of that stuff. And I think, $150,000 worth of that is
Where would
more
that?
than accurate.
Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna request we come up with a different word than attrition, cause that has a,
Okay.
it's not quite an attrition issue, then it's a retirement
Well, it is-
replacement or.
It is when it's tied to enrollment. So if enrollment goes down and you don't need a class size because of attrition, you can eliminate that position and not lose a person.
If you eliminate a class?
So for example, we didn't need a reading teacher at one of the high schools, had a
Right.
K-6 cert, we had a vacancy, they slide in. Nobody loses a job, the position went away.
And I understand, but that's not what you just described.
Well, there's two, I guess you can use it in.
All right, don't use another term. We will just,
I'll find
I'll just keep asking you to clarify what it is, but that's fine.
Salary differential.
Sure,
Okay.
I like that. And then, so then the other question I had is regarding perceived increases, where we might need to adjust additionally. So you've already mentioned utilities. So if I would, hope for the next May meeting, if that's something real that you want to look at, that we, obviously I hope Angela's can be here, but that, we get a sense of what those numbers are. Because then we may need to bring additional ideas to the table or whatever. And then obviously just putting out there, based on where the technology discussion goes. And if, and again, this is too early to put this number into play right now, but if we're looking at needing technical support for securing phones, for example, yonder pouches, or any other method, if we're gonna be needing dollars to devote to that, if it's the direction of the board, again, this is very much a moving target here. I would hope we would have numbers for that as well.
Had a follow-up to that. I fully appreciate that. If we are gonna be looking at technical support, including yonder pouches, I would hope through the administration, we would look to any grants, including to our legislative team who is heavily advocating for this work to be done before we allocate large numbers here, especially since we're extending the budget vote into June. We can get any kind of assistance. I'm not interested in this current budget environment allocating those dollars, but I'm not opposed to it moving forward, but just throwing that out there that I would
Usually be I apologize for quick follow-up, but what would be the usual turnaround though for that kind of work? I actually genuinely don't know that.
I generally don't either, but I'd like to make a phone call before I start allocating $250,000 of anything.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna throw that out.
I'll throw out, I prefer not allocating $250,000 to any pouches. There's other options, but.
We can go there a little bit later.
Yeah, it is what it is. I just want to get it out there. Not that I'm saying they should be in school, saying pouches. That's what, not happening. My vote.
Further comments on, should read the budget adjustments.
So can you, what is your vision then for what's happening in the next couple of meetings?
My vision is to, as, I've taken down a lot of questions about this. I would like to talk to, Ms. Justani some more about getting some additional numbers, where we can, on several things that have been mentioned. If there's any further clarifications on transportation contract. But I intend to bring this back in some form, as first read perhaps on the 27th.
And if anybody has suggested adjustments, should they have them for that meeting or is it better to wait for the vote meeting?
Well, I might suggest any specific adjustments to get them into the superintendent as soon as possible, so that they could cost them out.
So there is and we should have some more clarity. There is a meeting tomorrow at noon with everyone and all the parties involved in student contracts. So hopefully there's some progress. I know Adam and Philip, I don't know how he pronounces it. It sounds like Pires, but it could be Pierce. Pierce are involved with that meeting as well, town attorney, so.
So we've all asked a lot of questions. We're waiting on information. How are we gonna do a first read at the next, I thought the next meeting would be like, we talk about all the information we just asked about. I just wouldn't have a way to formulate anything right now without the information we
No,
have.
no, I understand, and again, I've tried to take notes of some questions that members have. We are under no specific obligation.
June, the 2 meetings in June per se.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what we were talking about in leadership in terms of moving pieces. So I'm not committing to putting it on as first read next meeting. I'm happy to continue this discussion in iterative fashion. But I checked and we're under no obligation to do it, presumably by July 1st. But before then, we have time and.
I just feel like since the session's ending on the 4th, like the time for our first meeting in June, we'll know if we're getting more or less revenue or more or less mandates.
Exactly, yes.
And I can vote in the second meeting, and that's just my 2 cents.
No, I'm happy. I don't want to go into this with any more uncertainty than we have to. All right, first reading of policy 4111, or 211, recruitment and selection.
So this is a policy that we brought for some reaction from the board. You can see it is a brand new policy, which is why it is, well, no, we very much scrapped the previous draft. But you can see that in blue, we've made some changes from what we talked about last time. And so we're bringing this back to you as a first read.
Jason.
So I see you went only to principals. Let's have a chat about that. I had brought up assistant principals. So what was the committee's discussion around that particular? Because I remember Mrs. McIntyre, you said that this would come with bylaws as well, but I didn't see that.
I have the bylaw, I've sent it in, but I wanted to see how this conversation went. So the bylaw is set to go, well, a language suggestion anyway. And so the conversation there, honestly, it was quite mixed. There was initially a mood toward not including even building principals. And then we talked it out and said, let's see what the board thinks with including this. We did not overly feel comfortable going down to assistant principals. And in part because this gets to be it's gonna be harder to fill these than the board might realize. A lot of people are going to end up extending themselves and putting a lot more time into this. We didn't want to overextend the board in terms of expectations with all of we're now up to 4 committees as well. And so that's where we thought we'd stop at this point and bring it here.
Just add one piece to that. I think with the assistant principals, those are done building based. It's usually principal, teachers, parents, whoever, they organize it through their specific building more than the principals. It's more of a screener here at central office, first 2 rounds. Where those participants, the parents and the teachers come here with the central office staff. So I think a normal place for the board member members to attend. A central office is not really involved in school level assistant principal. Principal leads that one.
Curious what the discussion was at the committee level.
Mr. Racer.
Can I just, as a committee member, I was comfortable with leaving it at central office administrators, but I took the feedback from the majority of the board and was comfortable sending it out with principals because it seemed like that was definitely, there was some inconsistency on how, like, some people wanted some things, some people wanted others. But I was comfortable voting this out with principals based on the overwhelming feedback from the board.
Ms. Flynn.
I want to thank the board for that, especially that sentence. I think that the way it's phrased, up to 2 will be invited in building principals. After reflecting on our conversation, and I've been a part of planning committees in the past. We have parents on those committees. They're kind of a wide swath, I think, of board perspective. So I appreciate the committee's commitment to reflecting the full board's discussion. So thank you for that work.
Mr. Krasnoff.
I apologize for not bringing this up or sending this feedback in. And when you went to the principals, it kind of triggered it for me versus the assistant principals. Does it make sense to maybe put in here somewhere that we're gonna look in district too? Just have it in the document?
District, I'm not sure.
It's saying recruitment and selection, it's not just recruitment. So if there's an opening, does it make sense to have some kind of verbiage in here that we're gonna look in district? Like, part of the reason we did the assistant principals is because hopefully we'd move them to opening positions like principals at some point. So for me, in this, it might be a good place to put that verbiage. Now, again, I don't know exactly how that would look or phrase that everyone would be comfortable with. But I think it's important to value our in-district employees too, and putting that verbiage in here might help show the value and help them progress.
I would just say from a policy standpoint, I think that's a human resource operational thing. I don't think we should hamstring, but in any way by having verbiage in there.
I don't think it hamstrings.
Well, I think it could, because I think if we put that in there, it opens us up to more scrutiny from in-district potential hires that didn't get it when we go out, and I think to me, that would be too much of a gray area. I think we do that already. I don't think the board needs to micromanage at that level.
Oh, can I pay I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Asa, but to be fair, Mr. Testani said that the AP position was specifically being created, and we're spending more on that than the elementary facilitators to create the leadership pathway for those specific people. So it might not be something that,
That's done. I agree.
Yeah,
But
I mean-
that process is done. So the positions are already there. We're not talking about creating new positions. I think from an HR standpoint, my personal opinion as a board member is I think it's putting us in a gray area that we don't need to get down to the nitty gritty as a board and be telling HR how to do their job. I think this policy directs and gets to the spirit of what we wanted. To directly answer your question of should we be adding, because that's what you said. So that's my feedback as a board.
And my feeling is shall consider is in a lot of our policies. I don't see any issue with saying shall consider. It doesn't mean we have to, but it means we shall, or the ability, or I just think it's important to our staff to know that we are gonna look at it. And I think this excludes that. That's just my personal opinion. Any major corporation has verbiage like
For any promotional position, if you're a current employee that meets the criteria, you automatically get us an interview.
exactly. So why don't we put it in the policy?
That's in collective bargaining.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't this statement, the school shall engage in fair and sound personnel practices and employment of all district employees cover that? Cause you are stating it's all district employees, right? So you're still giving them a look. Right, we're not saying anything else outside that, and even on the line above it says the Board of Education believes it's especially important to ensure recruitment, hiring and retention efforts resulting in increasing educator diversity and directs the administration to make the determined and substantial effort that the recruitment procedure of the district diversity. So you're already looking in district already on those two paragraphs.
Including but not limited to.
I mean, I might simply suggest if you have a language, you can always make an amendment when it comes up for, we can discuss it more concretely at that point. But Mrs. Flynn, you
I'm
have
all
your-
set.
Yeah, so I just wanna make sure that I think it's great you say up to two board members. I also wanna make a comment that no board members want to take part of the process for whatever reason, that we don't hold up that process, wait for board members.
Correct.
Invited language.
That's why we phrased it that way.
Because again, initially the phrasing had been will serve as, and that is a lot more, you're gonna have to wait up on us, and that's exactly why we changed that.
Thanks.
What thoughts on this policy? Oh,
Mrs. McIntyre, was there, and this might not be the right policy because it's recruitment and selection, but did anything come up in your discussions around that notion that we had talked about, the exit and stay interviews and all that? Or is that a different policy? Is that the term, is that the?
We talked about that for years. I don't remember that finding a, I
It's in
don't remember
statute
that,
now anyway, but I
Right.
mean, and it's.
I don't remember that
referenced
finding a
in-
home.
That's what I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, it is statute, but I don't know, there's several policies like the transfer assignment, termination, I don't think that would be in it, but anyway, it was just a thought I had when I was reading, just a place where we would say, you know, but anyway, just a thought.
Oh, Mr. Griffin.
Are we doing exit interviews for our staff? I thought we were told that we were, but then now I don't.
You have to do that.
Good evening, Kanika Ingram. Yes, we are doing exit interviews for, yes, we are doing that.
So all staff, when they leave, are given the opportunity to have an exit interview?
Yes, either they can fill out the Google form or they can meet with me in person.
While you're up, stay interview. Been progressing, has it been working? We're still doing them, we learning stuff from them?
The end of this month to the whole community. So we did the pilots last fall. Yeah. And we added the changes.
I don't know if I can jump on that finger, but did we get actual like data point results on that, or was there anecdotal? Right, because again, I thought that was a great idea, you know, to build on what's positive if you're a new teacher or whatever. Did we get, or is it possible for us to get, I mean, Friday packet is fine, but you know, I like knowing what we've done, even though it's not in our purview exactly to be the ones in charge of doing that. You know, if someone's creating a good community out there, it's feel-good moment, but is there some summary form that can go in a Friday packet to us as a result of your conversations, survey about the staying?
Mr. Tassan, we can talk about that and how we want to present that in the Friday packet.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, even pros and cons, I saw CES's stay interview data that they presented, which was part of where I got this idea. They obviously kept the actual information of who said what confidential, but they gave us a picture of, you know, the overall theme. Someone's good, someone's bad. 15% were complaining about their salaries, or, 20% love the ability to have breaks, or whatever it was. And it was really nice to see. So like when we do planning, if we have any ability on any of this stuff, and some we don't, that we can make judgments too. Thank you.
First reading of policy of 2121 line of responsibility.
Have any comments beyond the language in front of you?
And this was a recommendation from your audit.
Yes.
Any questions, comments on line of responsibility? First reading of policy 4212.42 drug and alcohol testing for bus drivers.
This ended up, as I recall correctly, struck a lot of language, a lot of it needed to be included, so it is what's before you. Updated, you got it.
All right, seeing none. We'll move on to item 9, superintendent report.
So we're gonna pass out, just have some, just to kind of frame our discussion a little bit. Tonight, the research infographic that was shared with me by a colleague gets some pertinent information around, done by the phone-free school movement 2024. And then just some discussion, keep this kind of focused tonight on what the purpose of the discussion is obviously to introduce cell phone free environment to Fairfield Public Schools. What are our goals? I think 4 main overarching goals are improve academic focus, promote more face-to-face social interaction amongst our students, support our students' mental health and well-being, promote positive behaviors. When we talk about what the definition of a phone-free school is, would be no access to cell or smartphones in school from the first bell to the last bell. If we went to the extent of height, including K through 12, high school students may access phones when they leave the building. Students will also be prohibited from accessing their smartwatches, earbuds during the school day. And again, for cell phones, often away is not sufficient. Research suggests that carrying a cell phone in a backpack or on your person is not effective and therefore does not meet the requirement of what a phone-free school move of the phone-free school move. Would have, if it was a policy, regulations, however you want to categorize it, would need to be clearly communicated to all stakeholders and strictly enforced by all administration and staff across the district. Can't be any exceptions when it comes to that in different, we can't have inconsistency period by school. There needs to be a means of communication for students and parents, should it be necessary to communicate during the school day. Office phones must be staffed and phone numbers clearly published in order to do that. These are just some things, again, to frame the discussion. Exceptions may be in place for students with special educational or medical needs that require a personal device. I think we need to evaluate the policy at certain points during the school year to get feedback. Talking with a colleague, what they did was they gave a small survey, couple of questions in terms of to parents, staff, and students around just a couple of questions. Does your school have a current cell phone policy? Is it an effective policy? They gave three choices of responses, and then I was told, and he's going to share that with me in the next couple of days. We're going to have an extensive talk. They did it again 2 weeks ago, and very dramatic change in responses from all three parties, including the student. You know, there's going to be questions about responding and communicating with children during an emergency. Again, had very detailed conversations around this with James Wiltsey prior to his retirement, and with school resource division around if it's in an extreme emergency event, we do not want children on cell phones. It is a hinder to school student safety. It's a distraction. We don't want parents flocking to schools on their phones. Creates an issue for first responders. What about parents in non-emergency who desire to easily communicate directly with students? The message to parents, again, this was something I collaborated with a colleague. Stop texting your kids at school. You're distracting them from schoolwork. Whatever it is can wait. If it can't wait, then call the office. And that's basically some other considerations is, and I think Go Guardian will help manage some of the mobile web browsing and texting that they can do through personal devices. We have to talk about what happens when students violate the policy. If we do go in the route of a Yonder bag or some sort of device, what do we do when students forget them or destroy them? Students who use cell phones as an anxiety management tool, listening to music, or what alternatives that we can provide to them? What other proactive support and skill building will they need? Question came up a lot that was shared with me. What about adults? As we all know, adults struggle just as much, if not more, than children with devices. Yonder, for example, does have a Velcro sealed device that adults should be modeling for children. That's probably something that's not going to go over well, but again, something that needs to be considered. And that's what a neighboring district is doing with adult cell phones as well. Again, what would be a timeline? We'd introduce policy or regulations in advance of the school year. We would draft that survey. Again, it was shared with me. We can solicit that feedback. Can hold some sessions with students and families to discuss and explain the policy, probably September. If we were going to introduce Yonder bags, it could be done September, October-ish. And then we would revise the policy based on what kind of feedback we would get midway through the year and again at the end of the year. Just some things, again, some things that were shared with me from a colleague, things that I had, looked into and had ready to go, so open it up to the floor.
You know, just to contextualize by saying leadership asked, we know you've been working on proposals for some time, and we wanted to get this discussion started at the board level. All the leadership members were pretty insistent that we try to make good use of the last 4 meetings before the end of the school year in order to do that. And so this is a good place to start again on these proposals that you've been meditating. Ms. Tracy.
Yeah, not anything against any of this. My concern though is we're getting to the end of the school year. And we're getting to summer and trying to get parent engagement now from here until the next school year is gonna be very difficult.
Engagement for what?
For feedback and if we're actually looking for feedback.
Well,
So, and I guess the other question is, are we talking about doing this as a policy? From policy committee and board policies? Or is this something that the administration is planning to do as a policy for the buildings, you know, et cetera? So I guess that's my question. From a policy committee standpoint, I wanna make sure that we have parent engagement. And they have an opportunity to know what we're doing from a board policy standpoint. If this is from the administration, that might be different.
Okay, so again, talking to a colleague and how they approach this, it was introduced in late spring, early summerish, around now last year. Their policy does not explicitly go into all the bell-to-bell stuff, the yonders and everything else. That was all done through regulations. Policy, and I glanced at the policy, it does more of what we would normally see or what we currently have with some additions. But it doesn't get into all the processes and procedures. What they did solicit in terms of feedback was done at the beginning of the school year as to what they're aware of, what they thought. And then again, November, December, April, May of this year.
I mean, I say this because in 2019, I proposed to the policy chair and it got out about spanning cell phones in schools. And I was talking about all ages.
Yep.
And I thought I was gonna get killed. I mean, you talk about pitchforks and you talk about, you know, comments and emails. And then COVID hit and everybody forgot about it. So I mean, I do know there's been a movement, but to me, it seems like the movement has been elementary parents.
So we have the survey out that we sent out. It closes on the 16th. We've only gotten, as of this afternoon, well, I say only, but we've gotten a little over 1,700 responses. The high school number was low, but for some reason last night it shot up to over 400 responses. Yeah, well, I'm gonna assume the 12th grade parents are just, they're not gonna respond unless they have other children, possibly. It's probably what we would have expected, just looking at glancing at it quickly. But I think more of it is they should be allowed to use it during non-instructional time and breaks.
That's the comment you're getting.
That's the comment, right?
High school, you mean?
For high school, some of that mirrors in middle school, but not many. Elementary, obviously, we know where most parents stand there, I mean, the vast majority. But I don't know, and I think even the feedback after a year of implementation in a neighboring district, some of the parents still don't like it. Obviously, the kids don't like it, but there is positive gains in terms of the benefits of it. And they even acknowledge them. So, but it was just this is what we're doing and pitchforks can come. But I think we know a lot more over the last 6 years than we did in 2019 about the danger. And
listen, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been on this board 8 years now this month and I've had plenty of pitchforks, you know, so I got thick skin, but I'm just saying, I think when word gets out,
Yep.
it might be more responses than you're getting and
Well,
You know.
they have until the 16th.
we get
to
so
on there.
many emails from the schools, from the districts, everything. I just, I'm glad to hear that 400 responses came in. That's awesome. I mean, 1,700 responses, that's great. But I just, a lot of people.
First of all, thank you for doing this work. So appreciated. I did share with the chair that I was really concerned about how this subject is presented on the agenda because it's under the superintendent's report. I mean, we have one member of the public in the audience. I just can't believe if our public thought we were talking about this today, that they would be here. So that's a concern of mine. Also, did you post this?
No, not yet. I wanted to share it with you folks. I wanted to do more of and I drafted, and I can share with all of you before, just wanted to draft something more of a letter to families that incorporates the why around it, not necessarily. And I was also shared a document with like a frequently asked questions kind of thing. That I thought was pretty good, that I want to look at and see if we can customize for Fairfield. But I think a letter that I have drafted that gets into why we're doing this is more appropriate for the families.
Thank you. No, I think that's a good plan. I had made a suggestion to the chair that we have an ad hoc committee around technology use because I'm not sure who's owning this right now. So I feel like that there should be a group that's doing that. So I will plead for that again. There are a lot of really complicated issues that need to be addressed here before we implement anything. So like wanting to make sure it's super thoughtful. And there is a timeliness to this, as you know, Mr. Asa said, and in particular, I'm thinking about the rising sixth graders whose parents are sitting at home thinking about buying them cell phones for graduation. So how do we communicate to them that those cell phones may not be welcome in their school next year? I mean, this is when they're doing that. So it's, it's a little bit, I would vote on this at our next meeting. I'd vote on a ban K-3. Raise my hand. So it's like, I don't even know why we have to wait till the next year. High school, really tricky. It's really tricky. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here, but how are we going to approach this work? I mean, we had it sort of in policy, but not really. You're working on it. Like, what are we doing?
The K-8 ban is going to happen. That's going to be something that we need to do immediately.
Isn't that already in practice?
It is, but it's not. I mean, again, putting it in your backpack or putting it away, I think we need to be a little bit more, because given what the students have said from the middle schools, they're accessing their phones during the day, whether we want to accept it or not. According to the responses from students.
Depending on school?
I don't know the school. There wasn't. And
They're allowed to access them right now.
No, the only reason I say is as a sixth grader, my son, if someone were to see him with his phone outside of the locker during the school day, there are consequences.
Well,
now, that might not be the same at the other two middle schools. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know at the school he's at, the administration is very serious about this, and the phone would be taken away.
Well, I think they're able to sneak away or whatever they're doing. And I think parents are also saying that they don't have an issue with it. I mean, it was very clear about 20, almost 25% of the responses from high school, parents don't see an issue with cell phones. Now, that's great. If you don't see an issue with it, they buy the phones, so they're providing the device. If a fifth grade parent, after everything we heard for the last several months, and you're graduating fifth grade and you get $1,000 cell phone, that's on you. But these are our buildings, and we can create whatever rules and regulations we want around this. And again, if other districts can go bell to bell at the high school level, I don't see why we can't do it as well.
Well, and one of the things and then I'll be done. One of the things that we discussed in policy, and it came up in talking with, soliciting feedback from the teachers and the FEA, was that at the high school level, sometimes they're actually using the kids' devices, whether it be a phone or whatever it is. So that would just be, something that could be a change, for the teachers, because it sounded like there was a decent amount of classes where the kids were specifically asked to use their devices.
Well, the staff that responded at the high school level, the vast majority were for banning cell phones. So
you're still for?
Just one last thing, we had also talked about this in policy, with Marco. One thing that makes it complicated is if you ban a cell phone and then you bring in your own personal computer that has your cell phone on it.
well, that's why Go Guardian is different than Gaggle, because right now we have Gaggle. Go Guardian has the ability to regulate. But it's a better product. Gaggle just reports inappropriate, it flags violence.
On a non-school device, it would
It's on the, it'll be on the, right.
Mr. Lee?
And if that doesn't do it, I forget the name of the product that Wilton's using, but that's able to do it. They replaced it with, it's with an S. It's on the tip of my.
So, sorry, so one last thing, how quickly can we do this?
I don't know what we're doing, so.
Have this conversation.
Say that, I don't know what.
Okay, I'll clarify. Have a conversation where we're clarifying what this ban is, what it means, like, how can we speed up this process? Can we, like I asked for an ad hoc committee, because how can we have meetings to make this the best document that give you the feedback that you need to implement whatever it is you need? I mean, I want it to be a thoughtful process, and I would like it to see it happen as quickly as possible.
So I was saying, is this a policy for us or is it them?
I don't
Because if
know
it's
how
them, we don't need.
policy committee, I feel like it's not policy, so I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
I do have concerns on the outside of stuff, right? Banning or not banning. What Mr. Tsai just said, these are $1,000 phones. I don't want, if a kid leaves their phone someplace, where's the responsibility of the school? Who's responsible for that lost phone that's sitting in some classroom, right? Overnight or something. I don't need parents calling the superintendent or someone saying, I gotta get my phone out of that school, out of that classroom.
We were invited to go, because other districts have gone, to go bring as many people as we want to go witness how they do it at Wilton High School, for example. So it sounds to me from talking, and again, I'll talk more with them over the next couple of days. We'll be in the same place together. But the Yonder bag is the responsibility of the individual student. So they get issued the bag. So when they come in, they put it in, they lock it, but they take it with them. That's why we have to have a conversation around whether we're gonna collect them, or it's theirs, and if they lose it, and all those kind of things. But high school, if the board has questions around high school, then we can have further discussions, but I think K-8, it's a no-brainer.
To go back to what Mrs. Guernsey asked before, and I hear Mrs. Jacobson the same thing. This is not in itself a proposal. But leadership was very concerned that we move on this with whatever speed we have left this year. But we talk further in leadership about how to craft a proposal. But Mr. Sassani was also talking about doing things on a purely operational basis rather than on a policy basis. So Ms. Jacobson.
So a few months ago, we asked to have this conversation, but you did say that you said policy was going to do it. So now is policy not doing it?
Well, I'll leave that for Ms. Maxicanelli, but I thought that we were talking about K-8.
So we started in March. I've got the edits that we have here. We had already gone ahead with K-8 gone and elementary school not on the buses. So that they are not supposed to have it in their possession at all, and they're gonna have to hide it if they do, but that was some of the discussion we had. And so we'd already gone through a recommended policy from staff that Marco brought to us. Then he asked to do more work with it, and we've been requesting the surveys, so I know that those are being done now. And we'd had one prior meeting where he had hoped to come back and then he had a conflict and was not able to come back to policy, and then we had to cancel our last policy meeting. So so we have already started the work. But I completely agree with Mr. Asa, you know, policy already said we're on board with K-8 gone. It was the position of staff that they were on board with K-8 gone because it was in the language that was brought to the policy committee. The superintendent is in favor with that now. I think the idea of crafting a letter and getting it out to the community as soon as it is practical and able, because I do agree it should be part of that conversation, especially with these graduating fifth graders. But you know, that's where I don't think policy should hold that up, and it doesn't have to.
No.
So policy would be a support to what's gonna become a practice. But high school, we were not comfortable in policy with bringing that up.
Pull up the policy. We didn't vote anything out of policy. These were just like initial discussions. We had a lot of parents in the room and we were just, I mean, I might even think differently now today than I did during that meeting. I mean, so much, that was in February.
About the K-8?
No, I mean, the detail, we didn't speak about the details of it. They were like concepts. So I don't think it's.
Oh, I think
I would disagree. K-8, we were very definite, all three of us.
We were very.
I didn't vote anything out.
Mr. Jackson, you still have the floor.
Okay, so let me help the policy discussion a little bit more. So there's gonna be a bill effective July 1, 2025 that you're gonna have to have a policy by July 1. So maybe you might wanna, if you have any meetings left this year, you might wanna work on that. Because it looks like that's gonna pass and we will have to have a Board of Ed policy on it, and it has to be in accordance with state guidance. So that's the proposed language. You already passed the House today. So that might help you with the policy piece that we're gonna be mandated to have it in policy. I don't know what the words gone, ban, or bell to bell mean. Those are three totally different things to me. I have no idea what those words mean. So, from a practical standpoint, I don't know if you're saying, when you say ban, when Mike says ban, I don't know if you mean they're not allowed on campus? Or are you saying that they're in a locker? So I don't know what any of that.
So in the K-8 world, they're not allowed on campus, correct?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna agree to that for middle school per se, to be honest with you. I think that, a graduated approach makes sense to me. I agree with elementary in that sense, but our middle schoolers have lives before and after school. And I just see that actually as a possible security issue. During the school day, that's different, but, middle schoolers are independent human beings, in high school. The other part that we had talked about before is we talked about this being a homeschool partnership, and I don't see anything in here, and I'm not sure if that was part of your policy as it is with the state guidance, where everybody has a different role. Administrators have a role, teachers have a role, the kids have a role, parents have a role. Are we going to be putting into, I guess it's gonna be the policy, but the state guidance does have that role, and I would want to see some language around what we expect in terms of support from parents as well, because you and I have talked about that.
I have that in,
6 hours a day is nothing.
I
It's
have
not nothing, but
in my
this is
correspondence,
a bigger issue than 6 hours a day.
in my correspondence to parents, it goes into the benefits of them collecting it at bedtime.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
whether they'll do it or not, again, we don't have anything to say there, but I think having a distracted-free school is doing our part. And I think at some point, and I know it's not gonna be a popular decision, I think high school has to be talked about here.
What do you mean about high schools? Like, what do you?
They should not have access to a phone during the day. Because even saying, and we talked about this a little bit today, that they can do it at lunchtime, in the courtyard, in non-instructional time. So I look at my phone and during the non-instructional time, and I get a text that's disturbing because my friend made fun of me or somebody said something or a post on social media. Now I go into class, I'm distracted, right? Now all of a sudden, for the next 85 minutes, I want my phone. That's what I'm obsessed with because I saw something I didn't like or I mean, the research is there. I mean, it's clear as day. Whether we do something about it or not, I think it's irresponsible if we don't.
Okay, and then just on like the Yonder Poucher things, so we don't have that budgeted. And also, I'm now paying $125,000 to store Chromebooks. And then we're gonna buy Yonder pouches, like I'm buying more stuff for the technology that nobody wants anyway. Meanwhile, our budget is cutting hundreds of thousands of dollars of maintenance and I have a $2 million maintenance. So I have no interest in one penny on that. I'll be honest with you. So that's just my 2 cents.
All right.
I just don't know how we're spending so much money to deal with technology. Why don't we just get rid of the technology altogether?
Well, getting rid of the technology altogether is fine, but then we still can't let them bring phones into school.
Yeah, I mean Chromebooks, I mean, this is a broader conversation, but.
Well, if you see, and we'll go through the survey results when they're completed.
Was it just cell phone, Mike? Sorry, Mr.
No,
Casoni.
no.
It was technology in general.
Yeah,
that
and
questions?
the
Oh, it
overall,
was?
there was a lot of positive reports that technology has improved education from parents, from students, and from staff. So I think, and there's nothing that says working on a laptop to get a paper done or do research is a negative. It's the smartphones, it's social media, that is what is the problem. It's not my opinion. It's, there's enough data on this now that shows that it's gotten ridiculous.
I'm not arguing with this.
No, I know.
Mr. Lee.
I am for a complete ban in the elementary school. They should even leave home with it, especially if you're getting dropped off, picked up, whatever. First of all, a kid in elementary school should have a cell phone to begin with, and you just can't have it. I will say that maybe in middle school it changes, between graduation gifts, they are getting more independent. A Yonder pouch for sure with the same kind of rules, but I think high school, what we're learning now, with the next stages outside of high school, I think it's crucial these kids have cell phones in the high school. If I'm not mistaken, some of the textbooks, don't they have QR codes to look at videos in some of their lessons? Or they refer to something? So we're actually directing them to look at videos and stuff, and so I think my kid had a history book that you shot a QR code on the bottom and showed the video of what their lesson was.
But any of the digital resources would not be the only method to access any.
I think in high school, cell phone plays
But you wanna go to middle school? Yeah, middle school kids to have lives.
Right.
That doesn't mean, again,
it doesn't
just
mean.
me, if after school you need to contact somebody, why do you need a smartphone?
Oh my God,
Oh, I get, well,
what are they gonna use?
They can use the phone.
right, you can't get a flip phone. That's not good enough to call your mom, your dad.
Mr. Krasnoff.
I just think we need to be careful, do this conversation that Chromebook and technology piece and the cell phone piece are 2 separate policies that aren't tied together. I personally feel there is use for technology. I know everyone here doesn't necessarily agree. And I am adamantly against cell phone K-8. I don't see a use for it during the school day. I don't wanna spend money on Yonder pouches. I don't wanna spend money on storage equipment either. I think these should be teaching lessons. If a parent wants to call the school during the school day, they can easily pick up the phone and leave a message about their kid. Other ways to reach out to their kids, we all did it growing up. We're fine. But I understand after school, there is a benefit of being able to reach out to your kid who has an after school activity. And when you get to middle school, you are independent, so to completely ban them on campus, I understand the argument against that for sure. But I would love to find a way to do it without having to do Yonder pouches or anything. I don't know what that looks like, but that's just my opinion on it. I see the value of both sides, and in elementary school, I don't understand why any kid would need a smartphone or a smartwatch. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So to go back, the middle school buses were at 80% capacity, right? So if you go bell to bell, these kids can still deal with the same bullying and everything that's mentioned in this directly on the school bus, on their way home or on their way to school. Correct?
You mean the 40% that are on the bus?
Well, middle school, you said was 80%, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So-
that's right, middle school's high.
If you're gonna ban it, you gotta start more than bell to bell. You gotta start when they. Or if it's on school property, like a school bus, shouldn't that be where it starts? Cause that's where you're gonna get some of the bullying in the social media. on that hour.
You could define in the policy school property, including the bus, the people who walk, it wouldn't apply to, but yeah.
Ms. Flynn?
Thank you for this. I was one of the members of leadership that was insistent. I will just voice here that I do want to have a technology conversation. How that happens, I'll continue to hope the chair will facilitate that. In terms of what's before us, I did spend some time looking at I spent mostly in Connecticut. I sent that over to the policy and leadership this morning. I apologize for CCing a few too many people, but just to voice some of what my expectations would be. I appreciate the goals. I would expect a FAQO that would be personalized to Fairfield. I would also expect some kind of flow chart for parents to show them at each level what communication to the buildings would be like, since that's something that we haven't really seen in Fairfield. Wilton had some great really visuals for that. I think any kind of rollout for this would need to be very collaborative, not be passive in any capacity, but have us leading on it. The science is pretty clear. I think we have heard consistently about this topic. I have zero desire to wait on this. I would vote on a K-8 ban tomorrow. What that looks like, there are 20 policy, the state of Connecticut sent out examples. There's policies in there. Pick one. Pick whatever's gonna work best, do it through regs. I think we know that we have inconsistent practices throughout the district. I think resolving that quickly is imperative. And I think that we should be heading into the fall in a direction with a regulation or something in practice. And if discussions need to continue for our high school, if that's the recommendation of the district, I'm fully in support of that. But I think any slowing of these conversations is in direct violation of everything we're seeing in terms of data, that we have a responsibility to create a distraction-free educational environment. What parents choose to do at home, what kids choose to do at home, that frankly is not in my charge. Do I hope that parents are making good choices? Sure. Do I think we can partner with the district and our PTAs and other committees that have formed to help facilitate the best information to our parent community? I absolutely agree with that. But I think that we on this board are responsible for that educational environment, and I take that really seriously, and I don't want to see this delayed any further.
The only thing I'll add is, I get the high school is gonna be some people's minds a little more challenging. I think by the fall of 2026, we probably will be on the back end of districts that do this in Fairfield County. Because
I also would
everyone is moving K-12.
I would also really implore, I hope that we can get this data and maybe we can help with the administration to get this data to the board. The anecdotal information from students who are in these buildings is pretty overwhelming, that they like these environments. They feel less distracted, they feel less pressured. So I really want to listen to the kids that have been on the other end of this, not just the kids in our district that are currently using cell phones, if that makes sense. I think that data is really important because while we're all in it and in addition of it, I think that, we're not giving the best data possibly.
Let me kind of try to wrap this up. So what I'm hearing, I think, is broad support for some form of a ban, but obviously we need some definitions and identify scope as well in further conversations. I do want to use some portion of every meeting between now and the end of June to deal with these issues. Mrs. Guernsey referred to this as, especially the K-8 ban, as low-hanging fruit, and I completely agree. And I see no reason why we can't kind of put our minds together and try to forge something through regs. If policy needs to lag after the regs, I think that we can do that. I know policy has gotten a start on this, but I think that, and I tend to agree that high school poses a much more challenging, thorny issue, but we can begin to have those discussions at the same time.
I think in 2019, yes. If Wilton High School can do it, I don't see why we can't do it.
Is the policy that you're using a K policy?
No.
It's homegrown, so to speak.
Correct. I don't recall Marco saying where he.
I think he's gotten some from places.
I don't think he generated this entirely by himself, but we didn't ask him where he got it.
Mr. Jason?
Through the chair to Mrs. Jacobson, you referenced this thing passing, right? And it would be signed into law.
A minute before it's due?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yes.
So, I would assume that there's to be determined suggested
I mean,
language.
it's effective July 1, 2025. I mean, school's obviously out.
Yeah.
I mean, so I won't speak for, the superintendent in that role, but I would suspect that by come school, I mean, you're supposed to have it, if it passes that way, we're supposed to have it by July 1st. But school's out, so what are they
But
gonna
I mean,
do? I would say if we had it by August, but
because I think it might behoove us to wait until we know this is, happening and then use that as our legal reference. And if we wanna break out, we can talk about this.
you
break
guys all
out
have the state guidance from last
Something-
August, right?
Something similar to a pretty straightforward policy that refers to regs. And then, as Mr. Testani said, after a year, we look at this and see, or along the way, if we need to make amendments or bring it to policy along the way, we certainly could. But I would say if we needed something in policy to say, a couple sentences and then refer to the regulations or, put it to you.
Other than the fact that it has to, it's very specific, the way that it is. It's like in accordance with the guide, it's a paragraph.
Yeah, so I mean, you put that into the policy and then you use regs to implement it.
Mr. Krasnoff.
I think most of us just sat here and said, bell to bell, K through 8 isn't an issue. Outside of that, we have differing opinions of when it should be allowed, shouldn't. So it should be pretty simple to draft something like that and then come up with.
Well, it's not so
Extra guidance.
simple it's not as simple because you talk about bell to bell or whatever, who's the enforcement, who's gonna handle this, then we gotta get, I mean, it's doable.
With that central office, we can at least let families know and parents know now, like, listen, there's gonna be a bell to bell ban going forward from K through 8.
I think the fundamental takeaway from this meeting is that there's consensus on this board for some form of that administration wants some form of that, and this is the direction we're likely to go in. What final concrete shape, it still needs to be determined, but we can use our time between now and the end of the school year to try to wrap that up as tightly as possible.
To manage it, I mean, at the high school level, we have 3 deans in both schools.
We're talking about K three. I'm talking about K three.
Knock that off.
Or really middle school, man.
Yeah, well, there's a dean in each middle school as well, plus administration, so.
I mean, the disciplinary thing is another factor we haven't brought up, to your point, Mr. Asa. Like, I don't wanna get to a point where we're expelling people. What are, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Like, what's the tiered, in the policy, what's the tiered practice or in the regs, what is the tiered system? Like, people are gonna need to know that, first time it's this or second time it's that, whatever it is, so.
You get a warning, you get a detention, I mean, a lunch detention,
The good thing about doing this at this stage is there's a lot of districts that have already implemented. And just in doing a very quick amount of research, they span, there's kind of a buffet approach here. So I looked at Milford. Milford has a bell to bell, but they don't have yonder pouches. Wilton has a bell to bell, but they do have yonder pouches. So I think for the policy committee, I think I sent you guys the most recent state guidance or the updated one that had the districts that were already doing this work. It kind of gives you some I kind of went through and picked my favorites. That's how I ended up on Wilton's page. Wilton had a really great rollout and campaign. I don't think we need to do all this work from scratch. I think we have a lot of really good data. I think we have a lot of really good parent input, and we have a really good baseline to go off of in Connecticut. And hopefully we're gonna have legislation right behind it. So I would encourage administration to lean into that.
I'm gonna put a period at the end of this now, just because we're getting late and we've covered a lot of ground already and raised a lot of questions. But I think that this has been very constructive and really just getting a sense of the board is very valuable in itself. Do you have anything further in terms of a superintendent report?
I think we're good tonight.
All right. Committee liaison reports, Mr. Lee.
The HVAC and IEQ, I think what I'm gonna do for now, and this will probably be the last report, get towards the end of the school year. Nothing in the report, it's business as usual, they're gonna complete the jobs over the summer. Tomlinson is under the same situation, that will be done not this summer, but the following summer, but we are on track right now on all 3 locations, so that'll be it.
You mentioned the lieutenant governor came to state.
Oh, yeah, the lieutenant governor and their crew The state reps came through and they were on News 12, if you haven't seen it. They walked through the school, they interviewed our superintendent along with our two local state reps and senator. It was basically to show the lieutenant governor what's being done in Fairfield Woods and North Stratfield School and where the investment went into, and she understood. We walked around and she saw the whole layout and things like that. So it was a good one. Mr. Peterson, myself were there also, so
It was a nice visit.
it was kind of interesting. Yep.
The other committee liaison reports? I'll offer, finance committee talked a lot about the Q3 report. We also got some reports on, further town audit projects that, town Saxel, had done, which we got pretty good marks on, and I'm gonna invite her to our meeting in June to detail about that. Board of Finance met last Thursday to approve our upward modification in the non-recurring capital for the ward lights. The Board of Selectmen had already done that. Some special projects, standing building committee stuff that I could skip. Anyone else? All right, open board comment. Seeing none, opening up to the public comment. More of the public.
So just, Lauren Efren, 241 First Street. On behalf of the PTAC Digital Wellness Committee, I thank you for having this conversation at the board in full. As you pointed out, 2019, I think the original technology policy, right, dated from 2018. So it's been long overdue. And the work that we have done this year in hosting events, which several of you have attended, and Mr. Testani has served on the panel for us a few times. We really appreciate it. Lieutenant Miltsey was a huge proponent of getting cell phones out of school. The SROs that I've talked to talk about not only the safety of the students, safety of the staff being at risk, because a lot of the fights that start, right, which can morph into physical fights, are because of social media. It's all because of the phones. So we know this. There's data to back it up. We've given you all the bucks around it. I would just encourage you to move forward with these conversations as soon as possible. You don't want to hear behind the ball. And it definitely is a wave. It's not just elementary school. I think parents are starting to realize the what COVID did to our teenagers in particular is devastating. They wanted to connect with each other. I understand if I had a teenager during COVID, I would have absolutely been like, go ahead, FaceTime all day long. You know, whatever you need to do to feel connected. But then it became an addiction. It is for adults, it is for kids, and it doesn't need to be in the school. That's it. That's it. We don't need to tell people what to do at home, but we can absolutely say that while your child is in school, they will be focused on education. That's it. Not any of the other stuff that goes on. And I think it's not just social media, right? I mean, they just want to connect with each other. I get it. That's what conversations are for. We should have those. That's missing. It's so sad to see kids coming out of middle school just like this. I mean, that's all they do. They just come right out. They're stuck on it. So it would be so nice to just brighter future for our kids. Thank you.
Any more public comment? Seeing that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Issa, seconded by Ms. Jacobson, all in favor? Thank you.